Hello, hello. This is Mike Abominator. Welcome to hell. This is my first live interview chat that I'm going to be doing, and I brought a heavy hitter today. So hopefully you will enjoy this one. It's an old buddy of mine, and he's basically the mayor of heavy metal for Southern California. Old school motherfucker, legendary, and enough of my yapping. Let's play some footage. Fender's Ballroom. All right. How was that? What a band. What a band. And got my buddy here that was singing in that video. There he is. What's up, brother?
What's happening, man? That's like you're taking me down memory lane there.
Hey, listen, man. Before we begin, like these kids these days, man, you know, every once in a while when I get a chance to talk to them, it's like, listen, I was at that particular show and I was getting my ass kicked by suicidals and lads. And dude, if you survive Fenders, man, then you know you were the real deal at that point.
No doubt, man. Those are the thing is nowadays they don't realize, especially the younger audiences that are going to shows, they don't realize that basically it was violent as hell back in those days.
Dude,
because they have no clue. Like it's been like 30, 40 years now, something like that, almost 40. And that was a long time ago that these kids have no idea that there was gangs at the shows, and it was kind of
Absolutely.
like a wild, wild west.
Especially Fenders, man.
Yeah. No rules, man. No laws, no rules, just craziness, you know. That
But
I won't forget that show at all because that was back when it was us and Corrosion of Conformity played together.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that was an amazing time. That's kind of like when crossover and thrash metal was starting to come together. Kind of, yeah, that was the beginning of the crossover scene mixing with thrash metal.
Yeah, man, that was a brilliant video too. That particular guy, he's got some old school stuff on his channel. It's a shame because his channel, like, it's very small, you know. And I want to spread the word about it. And he just happened to have footage of that, and I was like, holy shit, I've been to some of these shows, and that was the first time I saw you guys. I was such a little shit. It was mind blowing, you know what I mean? But we'll get into Fenders and all the brutality in a little bit. I just wanted to start off with thanking you for taking the time, man. You know, to me, you're a legendary figure and definitely one of my favorite frontmen, definitely influential for everything that I do, brother. So it's an honor to have you.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's an honor just to, you know, be able to spread music, and guys like you carrying the torch is what it's all about. I mean, the generations to follow, they're going to keep this music alive, so that's important. But I do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's going on, man? What's happening? How are you?
Good, man. Busier than ever because, you know, we got a new record coming up called Faster Than Death. There's a bunch of stuff going on where we're actually right now coordinating the record being turned in, all the artwork, all the lyric sheet stuff, and you know, different pressing plants, some in Europe, some in North America. So we're trying to get all the record label people that are involved all the parts they need to be able to release the record. And then there's an EP coming out because we have a tour in August of Europe. And that tour is pretty important because we're going back to Europe. It's been a while. So we've got an EP, 4-song EP that's coming out on a European label called Dumenia. And Dumenia is out of Czech Republic. And it's basically a bunch of guys that have a label, but they're way underground guys that really put a lot of love and work into their releases. So that was why we chose to work with them. And they're doing a high quality package. It's only 5,000 copies. Yellow and red vinyl, 250 of each, and limited for this tour. So it's like we're touring from August 1st to like the 18th, doing a bunch of different countries: Poland, Czech Republic, Germany, France, Austria, England, and also I think we're doing the Netherlands, Holland, and nice. Belgium. I can't forget Belgium as well. But yeah, so we got a pretty extensive tour. It's 3 weeks, and we're going to go over there, and then we come back, and in October we do some dates with Sodom. We're doing a San Francisco show, and then we're doing a New York show with Sodom from Germany. So we're keeping busy, and it's like just coordinating all the stuff. Like for the last month, I've been doing basically interviews every day, just trying to make sure that everybody knows what's going on with the new record and the tour coming up. So keeping busy.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fucking awesome. We'll touch deeper on the new record in a little bit. Definitely want to get some more specific information. And I know that there was like a promo video out for one of the singles, and we'll jam that song, you know, and definitely pump that and get that information going.
Cool.
But yeah, I was kind of curious, Katon, like back in the day when you were young, and how did you get into rock and heavy metal? Talk about that coming up and how you got into the music and how you got on the path of playing and, doing heavy metal and thrash metal.
Yeah. Well, for me, besides, I mean, obviously we all go through our adolescent phase and all that shit. But the best drug for me was music. Like, I mean, out of all the stuff that was going on, like I said, when you're in adolescence, everybody goes through partying, which, that's awesome. But for me, the music was, and it still is, it's all about the music. I don't care about fads and trends and how people look. It's all about the music first and foremost. So I got into music. I totally just head first dove into it because I loved it so much, and I still do. Like, I started out with, like most people, like you hear the music that your parents and your brothers and sisters or people that play around you, whether it's radio music, because I'm basically a 60s, 70s kid. Obviously, the 80s was really big on me with the 80s British new wave of metal. But before that, I was listening to the same shit everybody else does, radio tunes, and soul and even some disco, because that's when we were growing up. You heard that shit, you heard Casey and the Sunshine Band and,
Fucking A.
the Ohio Players and all that kind of shit. So, but
Mm-hmm.
the real gateway for me was that my brother, when I was 13, he gave me a Hendrix record. And that was like opening up the gates to hell. Like from there, it was other stuff. The heavier, I wanted it heavier. Like obviously 70s rock. I love that shit. But what really, from the Hendrix, what pivoted everything was when I heard Black Sabbath and Van Halen, the first Van Halen record in 1978. And
Fuck yeah.
that's when I first started going to concerts. My first concert was Black Sabbath and Van Halen. Van Halen had just released their first album, and I saw them at Anaheim Stadium. And from that point on, I was pretty much addicted, And because like most kids, collecting records, collecting cassette tapes. Back in the day, we used to buy singles. Go to Tower Records and buy singles, and anything I could get my hands on. I mean, even through all that, collecting even Chuck Berry and the Beatles and the Stones, all that shit, But like I said, when I got into Sabbath, that was kind of from Hendrix to Sabbath. That was the moment where it was like all about the heavy shit, And pretty much to this day, that's the way I am. I still listen to a lot of heavy shit, but I also listen to a lot of other music just because your taste grows. Like you start out, it's all about fast and heavy,
Mm-hmm.
And I still love all that shit. But now I listen to everything from classical music to opera to flamenco music. I don't care. As long as it's good, is really all that matters to me, But yeah, so those are my early and total humble beginnings. I still throw on Hendrix and Sabbath to this day,
Yeah, fuck yeah. That's great. Yeah, pretty much the same. It was mind blowing hearing that stuff when I was really young, and Kiss and Priest and all that stuff.
Totally. I mean, that stuff, it still holds up, and that's what's great about that. Like, I feel like guys like you and me we were right for loving that music, because now it stood the test of time. I mean, those early Priest records, those are like blueprints. Same with Sabbath, and obviously the early Maiden records. All that shit has basically been paving the way for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, once I heard Maiden, man, that was it. It was like,
and also visually, bands like Maiden and Motorhead and Venom.
Yep.
All those bands, man, they definitely influenced the shit out of all of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And then, like, as far as like, tell me about the early speed metal and the beginnings of thrash back then. Like basically the early '80s into the mid '80s, and once you got into that stuff, how did that all unfold?
Yeah, that was awesome, because before the whole thrash metal thing, like you said, it's awesome that you brought up speed metal, because that was actually before thrash, because it was basically taking metal, heavy metal, playing as fast as fuck, and then what happened was they had to name it, and at first they weren't calling it thrash, they were calling it trash. That was the original saying, and then finally it became thrash. But in the beginning, I think they called us trash because it just sounded dirty and ugly, which is cool. It wouldn't have bothered me if it was still called trash,
Right.
First it was called trash, and it became thrash. And that's when a lot of other subgenres came after it, like black metal, death metal. I mean, black metal was around, but they, this is before they started putting names on everything. They kind of had to tag it, because then it wasn't just heavy metal anymore. And the British New Wave of Metal was one thing, but this is when you had bands coming out of America. You had, not just America, but the German Teutonic thrash metal with bands like Destruction, Creator, Tankard, Sodom, which those bands are still relevant, as well as a lot of the American bands, even on the East Coast with bands like Overkill. There was another band back in the day called Carnivore before they became Typo Negative. So, that was the beginning, but speed metal was first. And that's why it's kind of cool when you look back on it, because even bands like, say, Armored Saint, Savage Grace, or obviously like a band like, say, Agent Steel, that's a lot more to me, that's speed metal, even though they got thrown into the thrash metal category as well. But if you listen to a band like Agent Steel, that's a prime example of speed metal,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But you can also mention bands like, they weren't maybe as fast, but a band like, say, Jag Panzer. I mean, there's a lot of different divisions, but I mean, even a band like, say, Nasty Savage, that's, they got thrown into the thrash metal category, but I always felt that a band like that had kind of their own thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was what was cool about like that early speed metal and then into the thrash metal years was a lot of bands were trying to have their own personality. Like, you had bands like us, you had, Dark Angel had their own thing. Possessed up in the Bay Area had their own thing. Obviously there was Exodus and Testament, but even before Testament, they were called Legacy. So luckily I was around to see all that early shit, and we got to go, on tour and do shows up in the Bay Area, and further up we did in Monterey. And, it was great to be playing with bands like Megadeth and Slayer and even Death Angel. When they started out, they were like, I think the drummer was 16 or some shit, like
right,
15,
right.
16. So, yeah, to be around and witness that, and also the tape trading. The tape trading helped everything. That was like the early, before the internet, it was about tape trading and recording records on cassettes and giving them to your friends, spreading the music around. I mean, that's kind of what's kept us alive. Even to this day, we still have people, burning CDs or making cassettes and giving them to their buddy and saying, check out Hirax. And it's awesome to see that. Like yesterday, and I really am always touched when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, are you Katon from Hirax? And yesterday I was at the store with my wife, and this guy came up and said, hey, are you Katon? And I said, yeah. He goes, my father. He goes, I'm into you guys too, because my father had the first two, or has the first two albums. He's the one that got me into you guys. I mean, that
awesome.
blows me away, because I never, now it's many years later, but starting out, I would have never thought somebody's dad would turn them onto our shit. But it goes to show you, after some decades of being around, that's what happens. And now I'm so proud of it, but it's still a trip to me to think somebody's parent listens to our shit,
Well, it's funny, like you mentioned, with this shit that holds up. Well, Hirax holds up now too, brother. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's really awesome, like to even just travel and have these experiences. And because when I started out, if somebody would have told me I'd be going to other countries playing this shit, I would have said, you're fucking crazy. I mean, it was really about, we wanted to do our own thing. We were playing, we were coming out of the garages and playing house parties from Orange County to LA, like we were playing backyards, anywhere we could play. But I think that's kind of what helped us. We were just so hungry, we'd play anywhere. And you kind of have to have that mindset. Like, if you're going to do this kind of shit, it can't be about the money. It's got to be about the passion. The money, that'll come later, but you really have to have hunger and balls to even do this shit. And because, if you're in a band or a musician that's doing underground music, you're doing it for the love. That's the bottom line.
Fucking A. It's an abyss, man. It's a hole that the money just flies into with everything involved with it. People don't understand that.
Dude, it's a black void. You can't even count. Like, if any musician that's doing this knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
The return, who knows if you'll ever even see it. Even if you become a big rock star, you still can't factor in how much money you've spent on your career and buying equipment and, burning CDs, buying whatever the fuck you got to buy to get your music out there. It's a lot of work. It really is.
Some of my close buddies, that them too. We're close to some of these guys that are out there touring for the whole year, and they're coming back, hitting me up. Hey, man, you got any leads on any jobs? I got to get a job now. It's like, yeah, you're back to reality now. I mean, yeah,
well, the fans they don't see all that behind the scenes shit. They don't know what it's like touring in those vans and in those mobile homes, and like, even for us, even though it's a little bit better than most bands, we still got it rough. Like, when you tour, say you do 18 days and you're doing most like 16 shows in 18 days, there's not even time to stop for like laundry. So you're like washing your clothes in the shower while you're showering.
Yeah, right.
You really got to be a road warrior. You got to, man. Like, if you're not, you got to be a little crazy. If you're not crazy, you're not going to make it through this shit,
Right. Absolutely. So originally I wanted to touch on, like, prior to Hirax, you guys were kind of jumping around. There was like LA Chaos, and KGB. So tell me a little bit about that, like, as far as those early groups, and then how Hirax came together and how you found each other.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I said, I got into it pretty early. So then I wanted to be in a band. Like, I didn't even realize that really was a thing at first. I was just a music fan. And then one day I was at school, and this guy that plays on the first Hirax record, this guy named Johnny Tabares, he said, "Hey, do you sing?" Because all we did was talk about music. We'd sit down talking about Cheap Trick and Boston and obviously Van Halen. Because for our generation, Van Halen was like the Metallica of that time, because they were the new hot, badass motherfucking band with a gunslinger guitar player. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere on our scene and not hear about Van Halen. They were basically killing the clubs, and then they were getting ready to blow up. Like
absolutely the whole band, man, just everything about them.
Yeah, they were the hottest shit on the planet. So I was talking to Johnny, and he became a really good friend. Like, I think most bands start out where you've got like a best buddy, like a dude that you'll fucking take a bullet for. When you're young, you totally think like that, man. Like, it's you and your buddies against the world. So finally, he said, "Hey, you should try singing for my band." And I was like, "Okay." So this is back when I still lived with my parents, and I went home and I talked to my mom, and she actually went with me to the music store and bought me a microphone. Like, my mom was totally fucking supportive. Like, she was the badass. My dad was like, "That shit sucks." He didn't care about it. He thought it was
trash metal.
Yeah, he thought it was stupid because my dad was a 30-year vet. Like, and if anybody who knows about veterans, like guys that have served in wars, they think everybody's a wuss.
Oh
so
yeah.
He thought
they're right.
he thought this music was for like wusses. So my mom was like anything for her son. She was supportive, and I got a mic, and then crazy thing is I went over to Johnny's house, and they were having a house party, and this is talk about pressure. His dad was a hard ass too. Johnny's dad was a butcher. Yeah, he was a butcher, man, like a hard ass. Yeah. And I get over there, and he goes, "Hey, I hear you want to sing for my son's band." Because we were starting it, but he always is his son's band, And I'm like, "Sure." And he's like, "I just bought him a really expensive drum kit. You guys better make this shit happen." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Another thing, it's a whole house party going on." He's like, "I want you to sing for me." And I'm like, "What?" I hadn't even really sang yet. I was like getting ready to start singing. I got my first brand new mic. And he made me basically sing a cappella there in the middle of the room with everybody watching. And I actually did it, but I was so petrified. And then he said, "Cool." And then that was it. And I was, me and Johnny started the band. But his dad made me basically audition in the living room at a house party.
Did you sing some Van Halen, or was it the original songs?
It's been so long ago, I can't totally remember. I mean, I remember being petrified. But it was probably something like that. It was probably either Van Halen or the Scorpions or some shit like that,
That's awesome.
But I remember that like it was, just that petrified moment, like it was yesterday, because I never forgot it. It was basically scarred me. It's like now you got to get used to getting up in front of people. That was probably a good thing though.
Yeah.
It made me realize I did want to do it, or I would have just probably went home and ran away, but I actually did it.
Yeah, it's like a trial by fire, man. It's like, hey.
And that's the way his dad always was. And he was the guy that actually started taking us to, like, we started doing talent shows and shit, like in Orange County. There's a place called the Orange County Fairgrounds. And we went there and did some talent shows. This is when we were still doing like covers. We were doing Chuck Berry and Buddy Holly songs and shit. And we were still wearing suits, dude. I mean, there's pictures of us wearing suits. I mean, it's like seeing early pictures of the Beatles or some shit, but that's what we were doing. And then finally, once we got more into the hard rock and stuff, we changed our look. But, I think you can find that with any band. You'll go back and find old pictures and go, holy shit, look at the way they used to dress, But, yeah, those are the early beginnings, man. Orange County, LA County parties and, talent shows. I mean, that was what you did back in the day. You played talent shows. Even if you lost, you had to play them.
Yeah, those old like high school, play the stage at the high school during lunch, do a lunch break or whatever, the talent shows. And of course, Southern California is known for the backyards. A lot of people, what are the backyards? It's like, oh man, every band around LA and Orange County started in a backyard.
You have to, man. And also we've got great weather. I think that's another thing that plays into it,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can't really do a backyard in Nebraska in December, so.
Totally. But yeah, that's how I started out, was through all that stuff. Like I said, you got to have hunger. And that's what I love seeing with other musicians. Like, I know when somebody's got the balls and the hunger, that, they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no, totally, man. It's got to be in your blood. Obviously, you're a lifer, you know, so
Yeah.
it's like obviously this is something that you were destined to do, and you worked your ass off at it all these years. So that obviously that's why you know what else are you going to do, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
why I always say,
dude,
what else am I going to do? I'm not really good at a lot of other shit, so
that's 100% it, and also I feel like it's a gang that I can't get out of.
right.
And there's no way out of this shit until death, you know.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, I mean, Johnny, man, what a fucking drummer too. Like he ended up
Yeah,
being, you know, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Once you guys settled on the Hirax name, and then obviously knowing you guys back then, getting to know you guys little by little, you know, meeting you and Johnny and Scott,
yeah,
and just that Scott's riffs, your vocals, and Johnny's drumming. Like nothing against your bass player too, he's a badass too, but
yeah,
that three right there, I think that's what really grabbed everybody's attention because, you know, Johnny, I mean, once you guys settled on Hirax, and then obviously started gigging around LA and Orange County, tell me about those. I don't remember, was Jezebel's starting up yet? I mean, I know that, you know,
yeah,
there was a
man.
lot of cock rock and stuff going on, obviously,
Yeah.
but you know,
Well,
Slayer and Metallica was starting off, and you were in the middle of that too. So, and
yeah,
we were talking a little bit about Dark Angel and some of the
yeah.
other bands, but yeah, tell me about those days, forming up the early days of Hirax.
I think it's awesome that you're bringing that up because this is kind of history and kids can learn from this. But yeah, there was a place called Jezebel's. There was another place called the Marquee, and Woodstock and Radio City. These were venues that even the major bands would come through and play, even if they weren't that big in that area. I remember Motley Crue. The only way they could pack this place called Radio City, which was in Anaheim, was that they had to stack the hell out of the bill, and it was Motley Crue. We were around too, but so we would go check out other bands, you know, like you had
Right.
that was one of those things back in the day. You go check out the competition. And so we went and saw Steeler, and they had Yngwie Malmsteen on guitar. We saw Rat, same bill too.
Yeah,
Rat, and Rat had Jakey Lee on guitar, and Motley Crue was the headliner, original lineup. And it was a great show. And the reason it was packed is that those bands all together was how you did it, you know.
yeah, they were all pretty heavy back then. You know what I mean? Like they weren't really the glam yet. I mean, it was Too Fast for Love prior to that, and Rat was heavy duty, and
totally. Rat was way heavy back then. You know,
yeah.
I think they had a song called "You Think You're Tough," and that was a pretty heavy track. And so, you know, throughout the Orange County scene, there was Jezebel's. But a good story about that is we were scheduled to play there. There's even a flyer out there. It's hard to find, but there's a really rare flyer of Hirax playing at Jezebel's. And 2 weeks before we were going to play, because they had found out we had a pretty good draw, especially through Orange County, because us and Dark Angel were starting to team up. And when we would team up, there'd be at least 300 kids at those shows. It was crazy,
Nice.
especially for the early 80s, you know.
Right.
So 2 weeks before the show, they actually called us and said, "We don't want you guys in our club. We heard that there's stage diving and slam pits and shit." And this was back then. That was like we were fucking the outlaws. I mean, the only other bands that were like basically banned with Suicidal Tendencies. They were really not allowed to play in the LA scene. Now they're totally loved and all that, but back in the day they were total outlaws. And you know why? I mean, Suicidal Tendencies, Lads, all these guys would show up to the shows and fight. But yeah, Jezebel's canceled our show because they found out that we had pretty rowdy, you know, audiences that would come to our shows. So we didn't get to play there. But 2 weeks before they canceled us and called us up and said, "Can't have you guys, too crazy." Nuts. But yeah, I mean, the club scene was great out there. I mean, we would play also Woodstock, and these two clubs, the Woodstock and Radio City, were right next to each other in Anaheim off of Ball Road. And like everybody was playing their Great White, Y&T, Metallica. Like this is before everybody really broke, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah, coming out of that scene was awesome. I mean, think about it. You know, this is the early 80s. Metallica's basically leading the charge, but right behind them was us, Slayer, Dark Angel. I mean, Savage Grace was still around. Armored Saint was doing their thing. What I always had respect with Armored Saint was that they still stuck to what they did, even though they could have changed. You know, they could have gone with whatever trends there were. But what I thought was, and I still respect about them, is they've always done their thing. Like, it's not easy to stick to your guns when, you know, there's a lot of different styles popping up. And, you know, obviously Metallica spawned a million bands, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But I always thought it was kind of cool that Armored Saints stuck to their guns and did what they did, But this was basically the same scene before Metallica moved. You had all these bands in LA and Orange County, going at it. I mean, we were even renting out clubs. I remember, or venues. We rented out a place in Long Beach called Bruins Den, and it was before we changed our name. This is early, right before we changed our name to Hirax. We were called Chaos, and it was Metallica opening, Chaos, and the headliner before they changed their name was Striper, because they were called Rock's Regime, and this was all on the same bill.
Wow.
Yeah, so back it was kind of a really cool time to see all this shit. Like I remember we would play shows, and James and their original bass player, this guy named Ron McGovney, who I actually played with later on, but him and James Hetfield would come to our shows and be right in the front row. So it was a good time to be in that scene and also be going out to see shows.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. Yeah, a lot of people underestimate Striper. Rock's Regime. That's some heavy stuff. To Hell with the Devil is a great metal record.
Oh yeah, it's pretty heavy too if you think about it. I think the problem is everybody let all this other shit get involved when it should still always really be about the music.
About the music, right.
I bet you there's a lot of evil heavy dudes that actually have some Striper records in their collection.
Right. Yeah, I got a couple of buddies that don't give a fuck, man, and they always bust out Striper, that early stuff especially.
I give them credit for doing that. That's actually the way you're supposed to be. You should like whatever the fuck you like and not shit,
Yeah, totally.
So I agree with that.
So yeah, I wanted to touch on this.
Oh shit.
We're going to bust out the demo real quick, and we'll be back. Let's take a little break and play some music.
All right, brother.
Yeah, those guys are pretty good, man. They're pretty good.
Dude, that's the stuff that kind of, I mean, even before the first album, that's what really gave us the break was the demo, you know?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I clicked on the wrong link. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to show the image, and then the song came up. Fuck it, we'll get into the jams.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, you're keeping it loose and you're keeping it real. That's all that matters, man.
Yeah. So that demo, man. Let's see. My buddy Dylan over at Headsplit didn't he do a re-release of this a year or two ago?
Yeah. It actually, what him doing that sparked up more interest, and then a few other guys wanted to do it in different countries. So it ended up getting released in Chile and in Mexico. Just after he put it out in America, more guys wanted to catch on to it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not in a bad way. It's going to haunt me forever because people like when they want to do their research, you know, it's just like same with say like a band like Iron Maiden. People know about the Soundhouse tapes. It's kind of like our sound. It's like Hirax's Soundhouse tapes, and I get it. You know, I mean, who doesn't? Like, you know,
it's so badass though. You know, I know that Dylan fucking. You know, I've known Dylan for a long time. You know, he was a younger cat at the shows up in Portland. He'd have this little box of tapes. That's how he started the label. And he would just show up, and Gravehill would come to town, and he'd come hang out. And, you know, he was even hitting me up back then. Hey, man, that fucking Hirax demo fucking rules. What do you think, man? You think Katon would be down to let me release it? And I mean, this was years ago. And I was like, dude, Katon rules. Hit him up. I don't see why not, you know? I mean, he's underground as fuck still. So, you know, next thing you know, Headsplit's like one of the main labels out there for what they do, and he's big time, you know, so it worked out great.
It's pretty awesome. And what's really nuts, dude, is after all that, you know, almost 40 years later, I get a phone, well, actually a message. This guy writes to me, and I think he's crazy. I don't believe him at first. I mean, that happens to me a lot. A lot of times I won't believe somebody. It's like, hey, we want to fly you to Europe to play a festival. And I'm like, that's bullshit. And then I find out it's actually real. But this guy sends me a message, and he goes, listen, I'm not trying to freak you out or nothing, but I went to high school with you. And back when I was, you know, substance abusing, I went to a house, and I actually ended up leaving with these tapes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I thought these tapes just somehow disappeared, but not that way. I just thought over years they were lost.
Right.
And he goes, I have the original reel-to-reel tapes of the Hirax 4-track demo. He stole them from the producer's house.
Wow.
And I'm like, why are you telling us? He goes, because I want to give them back. I've had guilt about this for decades. So make it even more interesting. He goes, will you agree to meet me? And I'm like, sure, man. I mean, I'm like, see if they're even still worthy of, like, do they still work? Because like that's 40 years of these tapes just sitting around. And if you don't have them in the right place, they just dry up. And that's why there's this process called baking, where they bake the tapes to see if they can retrieve the music, you know? Right. So I meet him, and it's like where we grew up. Like I meet him back in the neighborhood by this graveyard in Cypress. There's a cypress forest lawn. Yeah. And I guess because we both knew where it was at, that would be the perfect place to meet. And it was still COVID, so we were both still wearing masks. It was crazy. And he gives me these tapes, and I hug him, and I say, dude, it's all good, man. Like, I go, for you to even, like, it's almost like you did me a favor by saving these things in a safe place, because I might have even lost them, you know? So right. I tell him I'm not mad at him, and it's all good. And, you know, he just says, hey, at least keep me posted and let me know how that goes, you know? So anyways, fast forward, I get a hold of Bill Matoyer, the producer, the badass, and I'm like, dude, I got these tapes, and I need to get them baked to see if they're all right. He's like, well, I can't promise anything, but I got a guy who does bake tapes. So I go out to the valley. I find this guy. It gets even crazier. The guy's going to do our tapes, but he takes me in his office, and he's like the guy that – no, he's not like. He's the guy that does the archives for Kiss. Wow. So he's got all these Kiss tapes everywhere, and I'm seeing like Kiss 1974, 1976, Destroyer tour, like – fuck. He's like, well, you really, I go, can I take pictures? And he's like, no, because I'm not even supposed to let people know about this shit. I'm like, Kiss really is secretive. Yeah. Freaking secretive. But he's like showing me the tapes. I just can't take pictures of them. I wish I could. I was like, dude, I gotta have proof, you know? But, so the same guy that does all the Kiss archives takes on our tapes, and he gets a hold of me like a week later and goes, dude, everything's perfect. He
Wow.
preserved the original tapes because some of the stuff over the years, when people traded these tapes and they recorded them from deck to deck, they either sped up or slowed down. But I
Right.
have the original tapes pristine. He actually not only preserved them, he was able to put them on, disc too, so that way we have them that way. So he saved, and they're all the files to where there's the separated guitar, separated drums, separated vocals. He gave me
Wow.
all that, and so grateful that this guy actually gave me these tapes. And I'm like, he goes, it's really, even when before he did the process, he said they're probably not going to be good because 40 years. He goes, unless these guys kept them in a dark place. And I guess the dude's mother, what happened is he was cleaning out his mother's house and he found the tapes there because she died.
So she had him in a closet or something.
Yeah, she had him in a closet, but it's even heavier that he was cleaning out his mom's place after she died and he found these Hirax tapes. So I got those back, and hopefully a little bit later down the line we get to reissue them in their pristine shape. But yeah, I mean, that is the craziest shit that this guy that was actually, now he's sober, but he was totally a party maniac. I guess he was at this party and just saw these reel-to-reels and was like, hey,
right.
left with him, but he actually really, it's weird that the way it turned out, but he actually did me a favor.
Yeah. No, it's funny how the universe unfolds sometimes like that, man. That's just so, and that's what's cool about a chat like this. This is a crazy story that I've never heard. I've never heard you tell that before. That's just totally crazy.
Yeah, I don't think I really have gotten into this much detail about it because even to be able to take him to this guy that does Kiss's archives, and it was like an honor, I love Kiss, I'm a huge Kiss guy, so I'm in there, and it's not just Kiss. There's like Trouble tapes, like the band Trouble from Chicago.
Oh yeah,
your tapes are sitting around. I'm just looking at all this archive of all this basically history, and so this guy was professional as hell, and he took care of us. He gave us a good deal on saving the tapes, and it was just awesome.
Oh, that's killer, man. Yeah, that's so crazy.
I mean, the whole thing is like with that demo, I actually owe it a lot. I mean, it got us involved with Hellhammer and Tom G. Warrior. He loved the demo, and he's actually the guy that wrote to me and said, listen, I love the demo, but I hate the logo. So if you look at that demo cassette tape, that's when we got the Hirax logo that we use now because Tom G. Warrior designed it. He's like, I hate that logo. He goes, is it okay if I design a logo for you? Yeah, there it is. That's me right there. That's how crappy of an artist I still am. But back then I was like, dude, I got a stick logo or something. But Tom G. Warrior got that cassette tape, and he hated it. I think he just thought we should have better. And so he designed the Hirax logo that we use now that's on your shirt. Tom G. Warrior designed that, and what's crazy, see, this is just getting better. He designed that Hirax logo at the same time he designed the Celtic Frost logo. So if you look at the Celtic Frost logo, you can see similarities, especially in the pointiness of the logo. Look at the points and compare it to the Celtic Frost logo, and you'll see a total resemblance.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then the demo got us signed to Metal Blade Records. Brian Slagle got a hold of the demo, and he's like, dude, I want you to be on this record called Metal Massacre. And that's when everything completely exploded.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and here's the Tom G version, the new and improved
of the logo. Yeah, and we're still friends to this day. And every time I see him, I still thank him. He always jokes with me and gives me a little bit of a ribbing about that logo. But the coolest guy, one of the coolest guys on the planet. I mean, I've met a lot of amazing musicians, and he's up there with all the coolest guys like him, Finrez. Necro Butcher from Mayhem, all those guys are such amazing people. And it's like, always blows me away that they know our music and we sit down and talk. Like, first time we played Norway, Finrez showed up and he asked to be the DJ at our gig. And then,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we ended up hanging out and talking. We just talked all about metal. I mean, his knowledge is insane. But
Finn's killer, man. As an old pen pal of mine, and even when I was writing for Metal Maniacs, I was chatting with him a lot because I interviewed him for one of the segments on the website, and he definitely loves Raging Violence. That LP in particular just fucking worships that album.
I've always been surprised, like when I run into these musicians that I also respect, like the drummer from Deicide. He said he bought the record when he was 16.
Oh, Steve, yeah, Steve's a cool guy, man.
one of the coolest, and I'm like, that to me right there, I'm already happy if the drummer from Deicide, when he was like 16, if we helped corrupt him, that's awesome, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now there's a lot of Hirax heads out there, man. You know,
it's humbling, you know, and I just really appreciate it because it's to see those guys also go on to success themselves. Like that's the coolest. You know, you see these guys go on to do great things. Like even a guy like Chuck Schuldiner. I mean, even though he's not around anymore, that guy helped change music.
Yeah, he loved Hirax too, man. You know, there's photos of him wearing that old Hirax shirt, and
you know what's crazy is he traded me that shirt for, like, he sent me, he goes, here, we just got a new logo, and it was the death logo that now everybody sees with the skull on it.
Yeah.
He goes, this is one of the first shirts, we just screened them, and he sent that, and I sent him a you rule. He was one of the coolest fucking dudes ever, like right up there with guys like Cliff Burton. Chuck was, and all the guys I'm talking about, I mean, I shouldn't put anybody on a pedestal, but all these guys are just, you know, salt of the earth, the real deal.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. No, I wanted to get into that at some point during our chat too, because, you know, I ran into some interesting photos through the years, you know, you hanging out with some of these Hirax fans, you know, that are pretty well known in the music scene and whatnot. But first, I wanted to play another jam real quick, and then we'll get back to it because I want to get into how you guys ended up. Cheers, brother. How you guys ended up hooking up with Brian and Metal Blade and the Metal Massacre 6 and all that. We'll get in that in a second, but let's do another music break real quick, and we'll be right back. Hell yeah.
The old classic.
Classic, man.
Yeah, that was the first song we wrote for when we got signed to Metal Blade, and we recorded it. Bill Matoyer helped us out with that, and that was kind of the beginning of everything. Like, you know, the demo set us up, but this is what, like, punched people in the face. I mean, like, to see it go up in the charts, like in UK, like on Kerrang and Sounds Magazine and all those early Metal Hammer, all those early versions of those magazines was
Metal
pretty
Forces.
Crazy. Yeah, and it was cool for us because we read all those magazines. So once we started getting in them, we were like beside ourselves. Like we could not believe it, you know?
Yeah, man, your peers with the giants, you know, I mean, that was, you're in the middle of it, in the thick of it, so to speak. Yeah. And that album, like, you know, another one, you know, another instance, it holds up, you know, it's a classic, and it's a lot of people's, one of their all-time favorite thrash albums. I know it's definitely one of mine. Just, heavy metal in general is just a classic metal record that's up there with any of the other favorites, And so, yeah, let's touch on how the Metal Blade thing. I mean, dude, Metal Massacre 6, that might be my favorite, man. I mean, that's like a murderer's row, dude. Like,
dude, even for me, I look at that lineup and I'm like, what the hell?
Shit. Like, how Slagle was just like, he was just gold at that point. He was just he was gold mining, and it's Possessed and Nasty Savage, Hallows Eve, Dark Angel, The Obsessed, Hirax.
Yeah, even some of the like the deep cuts, that Hallows Eve cut is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And I think Nasty Savage is on there.
Nasty Savage, The Obsessed, yeah. Dark Angel, yep.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, they should have done a tour just off of that comp right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's funny too. Hallows Eve, that early stuff. Great. That's underrated, man. That first record.
Album, to me, that first album's a masterpiece. The first album.
It is. I agree. The second one's good too, but that first one, holy shit, man.
Yeah. Slagle had the ear, the golden ear back then. I think actually he was ahead of his time.
I totally agree.
Yeah, some of that stuff had to grow on people. I mean, I get it. Like some of us were doing something outside the box, and so some people at first might have been thrown back, But that's also good. It's like sometimes, like even with me, say a band like Merciful Fate, I had to listen. I love them, but I had to kind of listen to King Diamond a few times before I really got it, and then I was like, "Holy shit!" Some people still don't get him. I mean, I hear the funniest comments, but same shit happens with me. But I'm just saying, I hear some of the funniest comments. Like you'll hear that he sounds like a cat, like a white.
No, I mean, especially the King Diamond stuff later. Really got out of control. Merciful Fate, for sure. It was a little bit more aggressive and evil in that sense, and the riffing was a little bit different. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, stuff like that. You got to you got to let it bake a little bit sometimes.
Totally. But it's all good. I mean, it happens with all of the great bands. Anybody that is like outside the box, who is not afraid to break the rules. Like you almost kind of have to have that instinct. Like fuck it, I'm gonna break the rules. And I mean, it's great though when you do something different because then you prove a point. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, no, totally. So yeah, you guys started taking off obviously, and then obviously after the comp, kind of blew the doors off. And even with all those killer bands, you guys were right there. I mean, It was right there. It wasn't like it's hard to pick a favorite song off of that comp for me.
Yeah.
It's just like it could be any of them, really.
Even I enjoy that thing to this day. What's funny is there's they did like a box set. So there's like anything from like say 1 through 7.
Right.
You could pretty much listen to that back to back to back to back to back. It's really good.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think I saw something about that somewhere.
Yeah, even the early Bitch tracks and even the early Armored Saint tracks, Savage Grace, all that stuff is really cool. And then, I mean, I think with Brian, which he wasn't really afraid, and he also had friends in other bands that he liked. So that's why there's bands like, say, Bitch or Lizzie Borden on the label. He did what he really wanted to do. And he was able to hit some different metal markets. So I think that kind of opened up Metal Blade, and that's why Metal Blade is still to this day. I mean, they're shit. If you really think about it, they're kind of a major label. I mean, I shouldn't say I shouldn't say kind of. I mean, if you've had metal like bands like Manowar and King Diamond on your label, you're major.
Yeah, no, for sure. I consider them a major label now, pretty much. I don't know if they've signed a big Universal, Warner Brothers distro deal, any of that stuff. But I mean, I don't know if they even need to with that back catalog and some of the bands they have now. They're doing just fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody, like all the labels, help each other out with distribution. Like if you think about it, I'm sure Nuclear Blast has Metal Blade titles. Century Media has Metal Blade titles. Because you got to throw that in there because it's like a one-stop shop.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially now, with all the digital stuff and some of these people got to stick together, man, Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, let's see. I wanted to show you some of the classic flyers here.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's even like the stuff that people don't really know about, like some of the stuff we did up in the Bay Area, like us and Possessed and Death Angel playing at the Mabuhay Gardens, which is like they call it the Fab Mab. But that place was a legendary venue. A lot of the early Metallica shows were there, and Violence, Forbidden, all those bands played at the same spot, so to be able to go into those places. And obviously there's Fender's Ballroom, which is totally legendary in Los Angeles. It's basically, to me, Fender's Ballroom is scarier than any of the other venues. So basically that would be our CBGBs. That's basically what I like that. And then the bigger shows were at places like the Santa Monica Civic, and a lot of bands, even the major bands, the Runaways, the Ramones, Thin Lizzy, us, Venom, Exodus, we've all got to that level too, which was really the next step up. Like, to get to there was what pretty big moment for me to play a place like that, because I'd seen bands there myself. So to go back there and play the Santa Monica Civic was a highlight for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Santa Monica Civic. I remember the Olympic Auditorium as well. I went there a couple times. I was still pretty young though, so.
No, that was a scary venue too. Like, you got to go to all the scary places. I think the only other place that might have been as scary as there's a place called the Balboa Theater. And
the Balboa, yeah. I went to one show there. That was fucking nuts.
That place was nutty. But there was a place that was pretty cool. It wasn't completely crazy, but it was great to see shows at. It was a place called the Country Club.
Oh, Country Club, yeah.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to play there. One time it was another stacked bill. It was Megadeth, Hirax, Law's Rocket, and Dark Angel all on the same night. It was great.
Yeah, I think that flyer's in here somewhere. So there's some Venom. Obviously, I know there was another one too.
Yeah, there's another one. I don't know if it's in that batch, but.
So I threw some of the newer ones you guys got going on. And the Stop Rose older with the Excel and Final Conflict.
Yeah, that Excel show with Hirax and Final Conflict, that was where there was a riot at the end of it. It was pretty nuts. Like, it's hard to believe. Nowadays, you don't really hear about that shit so often, but back in the day, people used to get a little squirrely at the end of these shows and start throwing bottles at cops.
Right.
And then a lot of this stuff, like some of it's South America, which is great. Like, we've crossed paths quite a few times with Exodus. That's one of the bands that, for some reason over the years, we just end up sooner or later playing together, which is always a pleasure because we've known those guys since like late '84.
Right.
And they're just, to see Tom Hunting still just crushing it on the drums, and Gary Holt's always been one of my favorites. Like, the guy's just a riff master and one hell of a human too. It's always nice just to even talk to him, even if it's not about music. He's just a good dude. A lot of times we'll just talk about how, things are, we've been around for so fucking long. So I'll see him. Last time I saw him on the road with Slayer, we actually ran into each other at the airport going to, I think we're on our way to France. So it's, and it's even guys like Tom Araya, all these guys I have a lot of respect for, as well as knowing them for decades, but it's just like really awesome that they did great work, and they, I have respect for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was another one that I kind of ran across. What was this Speed compilation all about? I don't even remember. I never got a copy of that, but that was crazy when I saw that.
That's another thing. Like, I'm not going to blow smoke up Brian Slagle's ass. He'd laugh at this anyways, but man, that guy put together some killer shit. That's another one of his comps. And it's not the easiest one to find. The Metal Massacres are easier, but this Speed metal comp's got a lot of great shit on it too. I believe Cryptic Slaughter's on there, maybe COC. I think that was more of a crossover.
Yeah.
But and I think that was what's really interesting about Metal Blade. If you think about it, he was doing crossover before a lot of the labels got on that.
Oh yeah, no, like you said, he was ahead of the curve a lot of times. Yeah,
I think back then he had Dr. No, he had COC, he had DRI, he had Cryptic Slaughter. There was another band from Canada called Beyond Possession.
Beyond Possession, yeah.
Yes, Slagle knew what he was doing. He still knows what he's doing, actually. That's another guy I'm still really in touch with over the years. It's amazing that we've known each other over 40 years now.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. No, he's still at it and, still putting out stuff and signing bands. And it's, the talent-wise, he still knows how to find some of this stuff that takes off, and I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. His formula's working for him, so it's been doing it for a long time.
I think he's firmly rooted in what he likes, and he has no problem with just staying in that lane. That's his thing.
Yeah.
And he really is the real deal, man. We played a show years back. It was us and Armored Saint. We played at the Key Club. And he came to that show, and this is a nutty story. But anyways, afterwards, I was pissed because they put us in this mobile home in the back, which I have no problem with that. But it hadn't been cleaned out, so there was shit everywhere. I mean, I didn't know if there might even have been needles in there. It was pretty gnarly.
Damn.
But I was like, and there wasn't even any lights. Like they for some reason didn't run power to the mobile home, so there was no lights in there. It was a pretty gnarly situation. So I ended up arguing with the bouncers in the back, and they wouldn't let me back into the club, even though we had just played there. We just supported Armored Saint. So the argument got so heated, they basically kicked me off the property. So I was across the street in the parking lot. There's an old school parking lot across the street from the Key Club, which a lot of people park in there. And I was getting dressed in my car because I was like, fuck it, I can't get dressed in the club. And all of a sudden I see Brian Slagle walking out, and I'm like, it's still early. Armored Saint hasn't even come on yet. You know, they were getting ready to come on, but they hadn't started yet. And Slagle had gotten kicked out because I guess he was sitting in the VIP section. Check this out. Without a laminate. And these guys, the security kicked him out. And he goes, I guess he's such a cool dude. He's like, I didn't give a fuck. He's like, you know, I didn't want to sit there and go, do you know who I am? Which I thought was really cool of him, too, because he could have done that.
Yeah, right. He didn't play that card.
Yeah, but he told me, I'm not going to tell him, do you know who I am? Because that would make me sound like a bigger dick. And he's right. So he just left, and I saw him in the parking lot. And I go, dude, what are you doing? He goes, I got kicked out for sitting in the VIP section without a laminate. But it was just funny. He goes, those guys have no idea I could buy this club.
That's funny.
But he took it like a champ, and I'll never forget me and him being kicked out of the same show on the same night.
You will go!
Didn't mean to cut you off. I'm still learning the ropes here.
It's all good.
No, that's a classic story, man.
Yeah.
Fucking
Well,
Brian.
I'm telling you, man, for some reason you're pulling all this stuff out of me. I think it's because this is more of a conversation. I mean, it's an interview too, but we're having a conversation, and that's, I think, when the most organic shit comes up anyways.
Yeah, no, totally, man. That's how I wanted to do it. You know, I just basically fascinated with the stories, you know, and that's what I want to base this on, man. So this is great. This is exactly what I wanted, and it's ending up killer, man. I know that people are going to trip out on some of this stuff.
Those are crazy ass stories. Even that when I leave my lips, I'm like, fuck, I forgot all about that crazy shit. I remember it so well. I remember I was impressed with Slagle again because he had a Riot Fire Down Under t-shirt on as he was walking. I saw this dude walking into the parking lot across the street from the club, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Slagle. Because, you know, it took a second for me to come into focus because I was focused more on his shirt, and then I realized it was him, and that's when he told me he had gotten kicked out, and I was like, this is crazy.
That's funny. All right, let's play some Demons real quick, and we'll get back to it because I want to talk a little bit about fenders and all that good stuff. So we'll be back, brother.
All right, bro.
Down to the demon. And when you get there, you'll be in hell.
You must believe in me, my son. I am the Lord God, the Holy One.
Sail the
Brutal, brutal.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, man. Full disclosure, I used to crank call people with my Katon voice, and that song particularly, I'd crank call them, "You go down to the demons."
That's awesome.
What the fuck? I dude, no shit. You remember Bart, our buddy, Big Bart, Extinction of God fanzine?
Yeah, I do.
So we'd be going to subversion shows, and we got palled around with Scott for a little bit. Got his phone number was on the demo, and I even crank called Scott one night in the Katon voice. What the fuck? He was just cracking up.
That's awesome. Yeah, Scott was definitely a character, man.
Yeah.
Those were some good times. The interesting thing about that intro, that's a guy named Gonzo who had a band called Fubar.
Fubar, yeah.
He had a band called Fubar. That's him.
You will go down to the demon. And when you get there, you'll be in hell.
That's a lot of drinking if you can't tell that. And yeah, he was hanging. And then the second voice is actually Ron McGovney.
Oh, okay. Doing the prayer. Yeah, dude, Gonzo was fucking great, man. Fubar was killer. I'm going to do a little LA underground special on the show at the YouTube channel at one point, and Fubar is going to be on there talking about a couple of their old tapes that I love. So
yeah, that would be for me a whole nother out, dude. I had so many good times with that guy. Like, that's back in the day when you hung out with your buddies and you drank till the sun came up.
Right.
Rest his soul, man. He was a good dude, and
rest in peace, Gonzo.
Good dude for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's great, man. That's the type of shit that I wanted to find out, these inside stories of, Gonzo and Ron McGovney. Everybody knows Ron was in Metallica and whatnot. We'll touch about the other band you guys got going a little bit later. Yeah. But we're getting there. But I wanted to touch on Fenders and the Country Club and the Olympic and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, we already did, but we can kind of close the door on that in a couple minutes. But yeah, people don't understand like how crazy Fenders was, and it was violent, but you look at those old flyers too, and it's like, wow, man, it's just mind blowing the talent that was passing through there, and it wasn't a huge place either. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it was so nuts,
Yeah, the history and how it was still uncharted territory. I mean, even in the parking lots, you could party your ass off with 10 friends and or 20 friends or whatever. That's how big it was, and just hang out and and then go into the show. And the shows weren't too expensive because I guess that might have been the economy back then too. But it was affordable, so even kids that weren't really wealthy could go, which I think is awesome. Kids from the hood, and even like not just say Fenders or the Olympic, but you had a few other clubs that were affordable, and I think that's what helped the scene grow. Because if people can afford it, more people can get into it.
Absolutely.
Even to this day, we try to remember that. Even when we're selling shirts at the concerts, we just try to pay attention to what's going on. We try not to overprice shit too much, just because we want everybody to be able to afford it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, it's that old school mentality, man. It's kind of like, you haven't changed much since those old days. It's the same type of values that, we came up with in a sense,
I think it's just important, man. Like, people pay attention. They know what you said back in the 80s up all the way up until 2024, 25, like, they're not stupid. I love the fans, and I know they're not stupid. I talk to them. I mean, I think where a lot of guys end up going wrong is they stop talking to their fan base. They stop being approachable. And just for me, it's also, I enjoy this shit, and I like talking music. The only time I'm not down is if I'm beat tired, and that's rare. I mean, even when I'm tired, I still talk. But, it does happen. Like when you're doing long road trips, like when we do Europe, some of those rides are 9 hours. So sometimes you just want to sleep. But whenever I have the time, I try to make the time,
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it was a real bummer when Fenders closed, and I think it was like 89. And the last show I was at, the last show that was supposed to happen was that Sepultura show when they first came here from Brazil. Yeah, and they were going to play with Sadistic Intent, and but the venue had been shut down for a few days, and the people there just didn't really say anything. And it was just such a bummer. They were trying to move the show to like this church and in Long Beach, and it just all fell apart. And then it was like there was all these tours coming through because thrash was still going on, but then death metal started coming along. So they basically moved everything to the country club because once the Hirax Records bands started coming out, and some of the thrash bands that were still underground were set to play Fenders, but they ended up going out to the country club and playing those shows. Yeah. Because then, obviously Testament and Voivod, Nuclear Assault, they were playing Santa Monica Civic and Long Beach Arena and some of the bigger places by that time.
Yeah, they were starting to really blow up at that time. But,
yeah, totally.
You still need those. You still need those clubs, and you still need those mid-sized venues because there's always somebody coming up the ranks.
No, absolutely. And the country club was great. It was just that drive all the way up to Reseda. Because most of us were Orange County, Long Beach, or like LA proper, and it's like not a lot of us that were going to the shows lived out in the valley like that, especially Reseda. That's the deep valley.
Dude, it was a long-ass drive, and especially if you had a few buddies in the car because you had to drop people off and shit. I did all that. I was down like that. We had a friend whose mom was so fucking cool. She used to let us take the car. I don't know how like next time I saw him, which was not too long ago, I told him to tell his mother, thanks for trusting me. I never gotten in any trouble, but I mean, even I don't know if I would have trusted me back then, but she let me drive the car with like 6 other kids in there. They were all younger than me, but they were so into it. I'm like, if this dude's mom lets me drive the car, I'll take him. We used to go to see Slayer. We saw Slayer like on the Haunting the Chapel tour when they were doing clubs. They did the country club. Nice. So it was cool that, we were able to do that. But you're right. Those drives were insane to the country club.
Especially on a Friday night with that LA traffic, man. I mean, it's 10 times worse now, but even back then it was brutal, man.
Yep. And you stay to the very end of the show, and it's a bit of a drive back when you're tired. Yeah, because, I mean, one of the shows at the country club when Sacred Reich played there, Obituary was on the bill too, but they played after Sacred Reich, and nobody knew that. Wow. Because, we didn't have internet and all that stuff. So Obituary's first time here was after Sacred Reich. Wow. And most of the crowd left. It was just a bunch of diehards because we saw the Obituary shirts being posted up by the front door merch area, that table right there, that little booth where all the, you sold your stuff. Yeah, totally. And it was just stuff like that, it was just like totally crazy. But another thing too, back in the day were the fanzines, and I ran across some cool images that Hirax was on the cover of, so you got Jeff there's Scotty in, and then Battlefield zine, that's a killer one. I remember like seeing all these at Wild Rags back in the day, and used to go there. So I'm actually glad you brought up Wild Rags. That's another store that really helped the scene. And Richard was like, he was another kind of a visionary, man. Some of those guys doing the stuff. I mean, I remember sometimes I'd be like, dude, you're putting this out. You sure there's a market for it? He goes, I don't care. I like it, And I'm like, well, then there you go, man. As long as you like it, that's all that matters. But a lot of his stuff ended up becoming something, even though I don't know what happened to him. I don't even think he's still alive, is he?
Yeah, no, he's still alive. Last I heard, he was up in the Pacific Northwest, just kind of retired. He was doing computer programming for a while.
That's amazing.
So he's still kicking around, but he just kind of got rid of the stock, and I'm not really sure whatever happened to Valerie. But he's still around.
That's amazing. But that store was way ahead of its time, for sure.
No, absolutely. And a lot of people don't realize that the Wild Rag was one of the best zines out there because
amazing, man.
He was a music nut, so he just covered everything. And you found out about, a matter of fact, I might have even read about Hirax in there. And I remember like when you would first walk in the store, even like late 80s, early 90s, there's the Blasted in Bangkok 10-inch, there staring at you. He would put Hirax up front because he loved you guys, man.
Yeah, he knew, dude, he was great, and he really helped us out. Like, I'm being real. He's one of those guys, even if he didn't have the contact, he'd find the contact and give that to you to go get some stuff done or whatever. He was the real deal. Nothing but mad respect for the dude. I wish I could even thank him to this day. Hopefully he sees this interview and knows that he's appreciated,
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because I did my high school project senior year on Richard. So, basically it was a small business owner project. You had to interview them and work there for a day and, take notes and all that stuff. So I picked Richard and Wild Rags, and he was totally cool with it. And then he hired me. He's like, hey, dude, you want a job? You're pretty good. You know everybody. You know the music. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. So I worked at Wild Rags for a year, man. It's still the best job I've ever had.
That's a great story, man. That was another store that you had to drive to a little bit, but it was worth it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, that spot in Montebello, it's not like the 605 or the 5 hit directly to it. That part of, like, East L.A., the border there, you had to, like, take Whittier Boulevard all the way down and then hit Olympic. And, it was just people don't understand the, especially riding the bus, because when I first started going there, we'd have to rely on friends, just like you said, the country club, or even vendors, because I'd be living in LA and Orange County. And it's not like Long Beach was super close. Reseda was basically another planet. Yeah. And Wild Rags was difficult to get to. So when I lived in Fullerton, I would catch the bus at the Brea Mall and take that all the way into Montebello. It was like 2.5 hours later, man, all the way through uptown Whittier and, do my shopping and then take it all the way back. So it was basically like a 7-hour round trip, but it was worth it because he had all the best stuff. He carried all the demos and the import vinyl that even Tower Records was great, but they didn't have the Earache and Peaceville stuff and some of the obscure thrash stuff from the 80s. You had
they didn't have the shit he had.
No, all that crazy German stuff that wasn't available anywhere else, the Canadian stuff, the South American stuff.
Great, man.
Yeah, he had it all, man.
For sure.
But then a little bit later, I don't know. I mean, I know that I don't know if Hirax ever ended per se, but I know that you guys basically had a break, and then basically you got Phantasm going with Ron McGovney, and but I know prior to that there was a lot of bands like in the mid 90s that like Napalm Death did a cover. Spaz was all about you guys, man. They had the split that Bob put out on Deep Six. I know King from Deceased, he loves Hirax, the early Hirax stuff, and they did a cover. And, the band Crom did their cover of Hate, Fear, and Power. And Pessimizer, the zine and the label, man. I mean, there was like in that power violence, grindcore, punk, hardcore scene, there was so many Hirax fans. You guys were really influential on that stuff. And like, how did you think about all that stuff at the time? It must have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was what was kind of cool though is like to see them start a genre off of it. I mean, even when I look at say like Hate, Fear, and Power, and then there's Power Violence, I'm like, wow, man. But it's an honor. Like I really take it as an honor, and a lot of cool bands did come out of it. I mean, even there's a band called Drop Dead. I think they're fucking amazing, and they're Hirax guys too. In fact, the guy who's the guitar player is a big Hirax head, and it's just for me, it's an honor. And to me, like that's kind of what we wanted to do. Like we didn't know it was going to be like this, but to help spawn other shit, other creative minds, people doing what they want to do, and because at first it wasn't super easy for us because we were different, but I am proud of that. Like, I mean, seriously, we were coming up when there were so many, like, before they really had names for it, but like satanic, black metal, death metal. But those bands there were a lot of them. And we didn't really want to, like, we loved them and we toured and we played with them, but we wanted to be different from them because we already knew they had their thing. And why should we be another satanic band or, have the same imagery? Not that we love that shit. That's why we got along. I mean, even to this day, we still get along with bands that people, they can't even believe that we're friends with some of these bands. It's like, no, man, it's all about the music, no matter what we look like. There's a band called Impiety that we get along with great, and I love them. But, I'm just saying there's all these different subgenres of metal that I think that's probably why we get along with that, because they think kind of similar. They're trying to do their own thing.
Shayathon from Impiety, Greyfield toured with them in 2011, and he was asking me when we hooked up in Seattle, the first date of the tour, he was asking me old LA speed metal and thrash metal questions, and he was like, hey, man, how's that old Hirax and Dark Angel and the Suicidal shows? And he was just mind blown because that's what he grew up with. That's when he got into it, that era, and he was really into the Venice stuff too, Beowulf and No Mercy, Excel.
That's hot.
all that skate punk and the suicidal stuff, and
Yeah,
you know,
I'm always blown away by that. But I really think it's awesome that a lot of, like I said, back to the creative thing, that these bands, like even the power violence thing, like to me, it's a badge of honor. I mean, even there was a guy named, I think his name's Hirax Max. You know, I think.
Oh, Max Word, yeah, that's my buddy, man.
Yeah, he was in Spaz, and you know, so I to me it was really awesome, even when I would hear that stuff, and then they contacted me, or even Napalm Death contacted me and saying, "Hey, can we cover your songs?" And I'm like, dude, yeah. And then when I heard Napalm's version of Hate, Fear, and Power,
oh, it's killer.
Blown away. I go, dude, you guys did it amazing, and I actually got a chance to play with them twice. And they were so fucking fast. Even I had to like change my cadence because I was like, they're really fast. Like I think they're almost to where people don't realize how fast Napalm Death really is.
Oh yeah, Danny's nuts, dude. And even before him, Mick, you know, I mean, dude, it's just fucking insane.
It is insane. So
that's great.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love all that stuff. There's another band that's a little bit, I think they're from Scandinavia, called DS13. I like a lot of that kind of shit. But, you know, I'm like I said, I'm across the boards. I listen to a lot of different subgenres as well as other styles of music.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the punk stuff like Discharge and Negative Approach, it goes hand in hand for me with speed metal, thrash metal, death metal, grindcore, power violence. It's all, you know, we're all underground freaks and mutants as far as I'm concerned. So I think that's why Hirax fits in with all this stuff and, you know, all these different types of people. You know, basically it's all extreme music. But I think... you know, Raging Violence and Hate, Fear, Power just really influenced that. And real quick, it's a quick song, but I wanted to, speaking of, let's jam this out real quick.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah. Awesome.
That's the one. I mean, Johnny was just blasting away. It's like I think him and Scott Peterson started the blast beat. You know, I guess it's debatable, but that was some of the earliest times when I first heard Hate, Fear, and Power, we were just like, you know, just mind blown. It was like, what the fuck? How do you play that fast? I mean, that's a question I had for you too. Like, not only were you guys innovating speed metal and thrash metal, but what was it just... You guys were getting into some of that, you know, some of the stuff like Agnostic Front and Cryptic Slaughter that was just breaking the speed barrier, getting faster and faster. And you know, Dark Angel started getting really fast, and even Slayer. I know Slayer talked about that in the past. Lombardo and Jeff, they're really into hardcore punk. And was it just like you guys were like, "Fuck it, man, let's just keep playing faster and faster," and then you were just pushing Johnny, or was like Johnny just started to play like that, or how did that come about? Because I mean, that was one of the earliest times that you hear blast beats like that, you know?
Yeah, we were, I think part of it was that we loved all kinds of like underground bands too. Like, I think because we were one at that point, we were like listening for other underground bands. What are they doing? You know, and it made us more creative. But the other thing that people don't know is that we were also like the first people that took to us. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were the diehard metal guys, but a lot of punks like Black Flag, they're even their own company, they had their own booking agency out of LA, and they ended up picking us up so that we would be touring right behind Black Flag. Like they play the night before us and we play the next night. So we'd be on the road. And I remember we did a show up in Monterey, and it was like Black Flag was the night before. It was Black Flag, COC, and Blast. And then the next night it was Hirax, Death Angel, and Slayer. So we did same agency. They were called Global. But like these are technical things, so doing this interview with you is pretty awesome to be able to tell these stories.
Yeah.
And then we were also listening to other bands from other countries. Like we liked a band called Raw Power from Italy. There was another band. Yeah, there was another band from Canada called the Neos, and that if you can find any of their stuff, they were amazing. They were really fast.
Those are awesome. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, but we just wanted to speed up. I mean, that's where we were at that time of our lives. We were really young. We had a lot of energy, and we just loved playing fast. It was almost like not just a competition, but it was like a competition against ourselves to see how fast we could play, and everybody was on board. Like we would be partying together and listening to all these different bands on cassette tapes, whether it was usually we had a shitty ghetto blaster. Like before they got good, we had the crappy ones, but we could make out what was coming out of those speakers. So we would party listening to these bands, a lot of Italian, underground crossover bands. And there were bands out of Sweden that were doing this kind of stuff too. And even the UK, there were bands like, besides like Napalm Death, there was a band called the Concrete Socks.
Concrete Socks.
Yeah. And then
Heresy.
Sacrilege. Yeah. There was an English band called Sacrilege back at that time. There was a band called, God, if I can remember, not just Heresy. God, what was their name? It was something like Heresy, but that's how it's been so long. But anyways, there were a lot of great crossover bands coming out, and they really didn't have names for any of this shit, really. I mean, they were calling it punk. They were calling it kind of crossover, but the crossover thing really started happening right around the mid-'80s. That's when they really had a name for it. That's why like bands like DRI and Dr. No and Cryptic Slaughter, they were kind of like, that's why Metal Blade had a label called Death Records. That was for all crossover bands. But we definitely had a lot to do with that. Not toot my own horn at all. But Metal Blade realized like they had us, and then we were saying, hey, there's this band called DRI, man, you got to check them out, and like there's actually a photo of us playing the country club, and DRI we invited them to the show. It was us and Dark Angel and Megadeth. And DRI is hanging out in our backstage, and there's a picture of us introducing them to Brian Slagle. That's how all that came about, Hirax hooking up, DRI, because we loved them, So yeah, and we still do. They're like old friends. I mean, that's a band that I have a long history with. I've known DRI since at least 84, 83, So wow. Yeah, it's a cool thing, and but helping to change the landscape was awesome, like to see that got more open-minded, and that the kids were coming to the shows with Venom, and then they were starting to wear crossover shit too. It was like awesome. Who would ever have thought? I didn't know that it was going to go this way. I really didn't. But I mean, it's cool to see that it lasted, and the kids are still doing it. I mean, I think that's why you got bands now like, say, Toxic Holocaust or Municipal Waste, because of that crossover scene,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, that era too, later on, like once Hirax started, getting a little bit more active again. Like I said, I don't know if you guys ever technically stopped, but
I can tell you what really went down. Like, I mean, we were crazy. So you got crazy kids drinking and doing meth. Like, I mean, let's be real about it. Like, people need to know the truth. I'm not trying to say we're fucking bad people. We were just young and trying everything that people could put in front of us, not just music, but alcohol and other crazy shit, Yeah,
right.
Be real about it. I mean, I don't think you need to lie. I mean, the world's gotten a lot more open-minded. Back in the day, people would lie their asses off about what they're doing behind. Yeah. But we were balls out partying. I mean, abusive shit, partying and running into walls, literally, to prove that we were badass. Like, Johnny was the guy. I mean, and I'll be real, and I would do it even if he was sitting here because he's my brother. But Johnny Tabaras was the craziest out of everybody. He made even Paul Bailoff look wimpy. Like, Johnny, I love Paul Bailoff, but Johnny would probably have given his life to prove a point. That's how crazy he was, Johnny's like a tank. The dude's still alive. Like, So we ended up splitting up over basically, and not really. It wasn't like we hated each other. It was more that we didn't understand each other because we were all jacked up on either alcohol or drugs or some shit, And,
yeah, for sure.
So, but I think that also made us miss each other. So when we did go away from each other, you kind of remember like the good times, and you remember that this guy's been your friend since you were in junior high school. To this day, and it's kind of funny. This is like almost a love letter to Johnny. I still love that guy. He's my brother. A lot of the guys were my brothers. We just ended up having different disagreements. I mean, that still goes on to this day. If you're a musician, you might start out playing with somebody that looks great. And I know you can relate. You can relate to this. It looks great. Everything's cool. and then some shit happens and it's not cool. And I'm not trying to, put that on anybody. It's two-sided. There's always two sides to the story. But, you got to do what you got to do. And that's, at the end of the day, it's about music, and you got to keep it rolling. Like for me, a lot of it now is just that the band's been around for over 40 years. I don't want to let the fans down. I really don't. Like, bottom line is there's people that care. There are people that have come to our shows, representing their brother who died, like wearing their vest, telling us that they buried their brother with Hirax records in the coffin.
Right,
so
right.
I feel a responsibility to those same people, man. I don't want to let them down. Yeah,
so it's like you're just driven. So it's almost like you got to keep the machine going. So next man up, whoever, it's like
let's go.
And it's, you have a formula and a vision.
Yeah,
and
you got to keep.
Don't match it, then it is what it is, man.
Yeah, but those guys were great. We just got away from each other. That went on for a period where I was gone, and I was doing Phantasm, which was a great outlet for me, which actually made me learn a lot, like of what I wanted to take the band to. Because like if you listen to the Phantasm demo, some of those elements are in Hirax now. Because it's like I like that kind of stuff, so I wanted to bridge both worlds, even though we're still straight up Hirax. But there's some elements of Phantasm even there to this day. So
yeah, let's jam it out. Speaking of, I have a Phantasm track here real quick we can get into.
All right, because you can hear some of that stuff even in Hirax to this day. I don't know if you have the track handy, but there's a song called Blown to Oblivion. And that track actually got some elements of what Hirax has become, like.
Right, okay. Well, I got Pray for Power right now, so we'll bust that out, and then we'll chat about Phantasm for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's going back to 1987.
That was, like, to me, that's a perfect example of, like, prime, badass, late 80s thrash.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I remember when we heard that, too, because, a lot of us were like, oh, fucking Hirax, man. Like, what's going on with Hirax? And I'll get into with seeing you around town at some of the record stores and stuff like that. We'll get into that next. But just Phantasm was like, it wasn't Hirax, but it was pretty much like a lot of us were like, fuck, dude, this band is just as killer in a lot of ways. It's a little bit more tactical in a sense, but I mean, the aggression was there. And I remember like, Ron being involved was cool too. A lot of people now they know, but back then they didn't know that was the guy that was in Metallica before Cliff, so.
Yeah, and it was cool because when I started to put that together, I've been bugging Ron because I knew him from when he was in Metallica, even before they had the name Metallica, because I knew him when they were called Leather Charm. They had a few names: Leather Charm, Obsession, because they loved UFO. They had a few different names, but I knew Ron and James before they really, before they got the Danish guy. I remember when they got the Danish guy, and then they needed to find, then they needed to find other guitar players. They found this Black Rastafarian. What was his name? I gotta think real quick. Off the top of my head, the guitar player plays on No Light. Wait, it's actually Hit the Lights. Lloyd Grant. Damn,
okay.
I'm picking at my own brain, but they got Lloyd Grant. That was before Dave Mustaine. So I remember all that stuff. Like, dude, we used to go to each other's houses and parties. So I remember when they got Lars and they were trying to figure that out, and then they needed a guitar player because they got the offer for the first Metal Massacre record, and they busted their ass, which I give them credit because they really weren't totally together as a band yet. They had just gotten Lars. He had just come over from Denmark. I think he was working at a gas station. It's crazy to talk about all this stuff now, but but they got the offer to be on Metal Blade. They really weren't a band. The Metal Massacre, the first record, and so Lars was smart. That's where I got to give that little bastard credit, man. He was smart, and said, we just got to get a song together, even though we're not really a band yet. They got the song together. They figured out the name Metallica, and they got on that comp, and that the rest is history. But
I knew they knew, and sorry to interrupt you, but they knew like that was important. They had to be on that comp because I think that you saw the planets were starting to align for that stuff. So they had a feeling like, oh, dude, this is do or die. We got to do this.
Finger on the pulse, and
totally.
So I knew Ron from those days, and then when Ron got kicked out of Metallica, because when they found Cliff, they saw Cliff playing with Trauma.
Yeah.
It was like an ephany. They saw Cliff, and they were like, we need this dude. But Cliff wouldn't join the band unless they relocated to San Francisco, so that's why they left. But then Ron was around, and we were around, and we were all friends, so we just partied together, and it was kind of hard seeing Ron go through what he was going through because, he just kind of got booted out of the biggest band on the planet, underground band, For years, he wouldn't do it. Like, for a while, it took till 87, but for a while, he wouldn't do it because, he's out of that band, 83? Somewhere around there, 1983?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so 4 years later, I talk him into doing a band, and we've been watching drinking and watching a lot of horror movies, and I love this movie called Phantasm, the movie.
Fuck yeah.
And I was like, dude, we got to call the band Phantasm. That movie rules, the flying ball, the steel ball.
Yep, the tall man.
Yeah. So anyways, we started, and then I remember Gene Hoglan finding out and him calling me and go, dude, if you do this band, I got to play drums. And I'm like, yeah, dude, Gene was already great even back then. I knew he was going to be even better because the longer that guy plays drums, it's like an octopus growing bigger tentacles and arms,
Fucking A.
Better. So Gene offered to play the drums, and we wanted to try to make it kind of a super group. We already had a couple guitar players, but we ended up asking Rocky George, and he was a part of it. But what happened was, we rehearsed with him, and we were like, this is going to be amazing because the rehearsals with Rocky George on guitar were insane. It was me.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, Gene Hoglan, me, Ron McGovney, and Rocky George. And we had another guy named Rodney. And so anyways, Rodney and Nicholson. So we were jamming, and then I get a call a few days later, and Rocky goes, Mike Muir said I have to make a choice between recording the next record, which was Join the Army. And I'm like, dude, you got to do that because that's your paycheck. Suicidal was doing pretty good, and he needed a new record, and this is before they named it, but it was Join the Army. That's what it turned out to be, was that record.
Damn.
And that's history changing too. Plus, it was his main band, and I couldn't fault him. I'm like, dude, you got to do that. We'll be all right. But I can't imagine what the demo, the Phantasm demo, would have sounded like with George on it.
Right.
But it turned out good for all of us. That demo did really well. It was like, but another case of maybe my fault too, but we were partying too much. Like young kids, and I think you get that because you're older now, but when you're younger, partying and disagreements and just stupid shit. Like stuff I wouldn't do now just because I've been through it already. But we were doing that. But dude, that band was already getting. We had like 5 record label offers. We were invited to, just like Hirax had this too. But Phantasm had a big buzz. I think also Ron being involved didn't hurt. They were interested in anybody who had been in Metallica at that point. I mean, look at what Dave Mustaine was able to do. And I always look at Dave as a prime example of a guy who had heart and anger, and he turned it into something.
Right.
Yeah, I wish Ron would have had a bit of that himself. He wasn't the same as Mustaine. There's a difference there. Ron's a little more laid back. Mustaine was like, "I'll get you back for this shit. I will burn the world to get you back if that's what it takes." That's actually what I love about Mustaine. That guy takes anger and turns it into positive energy. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But so we did the demo, but after a while that kind of fell apart from all the raging and partying. I mean, we had some great moments. So we went up to San Francisco, played some great stuff. We actually drove to San Francisco in a hearse. Like, we put the whole band in a hearse and even some equipment and drove to San Francisco and played up there with Sacrilege BC and
Nice.
and it was a great show, So, but then I came back to my thought, like, dude, Hirax is, and that's another reason I'm doing it, and now it's 100%. But Hirax has always been my baby. It's my child. Like from '83 and '84 on, this has been my life. So I went back and said, let's try to bury the hatchet. We've all been through stuff. We've all been apart for a while, and that's when we did this thing called Blasted in Bangkok, and that's when Hirax started up again. But we weren't really apart that long. It's just later on, finally, when it did the wheels came off of it, I went away for like 13 years. But during that time, I did similar to what you did. I worked in record stores. I also worked at some record labels, and I wanted to learn more about the business end, because that's another beast. Even though it sucks, you got to kind of learn about the business end of things if you're going to do this music,
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, real quick, but yeah, before we get into that and the record store stuff, I know at some point, like in the 90s, Hirax started working with Deep Six on a lot of stuff and new stuff, releasing some older stuff. And, I remember seeing Bob at Fender's behind Johnny with his tape recorder.
Yeah.
And he would record everything.
What the hell? Did you not do drugs? Your memory's perfect, man.
Well, I was not doing drugs, so I was really young, back then. And so I was sober for a lot of the early stuff, even though I was getting my ass kicked and all the crazy shit that I saw. Once the early 90s came around, the mid 90s, forget about it. I can't remember most of those shows, but yeah, the early stuff I definitely remember. And that's when I first ran across Bob. And then obviously he went on to Lack of Interest later. That's what he was known for. And of course, Grandpa, rest in peace, Grandpa. And
yes.
But yeah, Grandpa was the best.
Yes, man.
Yeah, so obviously you've known Bob forever because he was, he loved Hirax. So is that how that relationship started up?
Since he was a kid, and Bob actually, I'm so glad you brought up Bob and Deep Six, man. That dude changed my life, not just as a fan and coming to the shows, but as a friend, a real friend. Like, in this business, you're going to learn quickly who's real and who's not.
Absolutely.
Bob's completely real. I've been there at his house, held his children when they were babies.
Salt of the earth, man.
Part of the family, and I actually think he's a genius. I'm not kidding you. I seriously think he's a genius. He's helped preserve a lot of the music. The most fair record label dude I've ever worked with. In fact, to me, he's the template now that I go by. Like, if guys remind me of Bob, then I work with him. That's the only way I do records now. Like, I'm not even interested, even though we still get a lot of interest from big labels. I don't even care about that. I care about their integrity. Bob had all of that. And so going forward, that's kind of like I said, that's the template that I go by. So Bob, I have nothing but praise for. A lot of love, like, as a brother, man. That guy, and his grandpa was amazing. I mean, probably the oldest underground thrash punk crossover dude of all time. Grandpa, that dude, I think it was in his close to maybe 80s. I know it was 70s for sure, but I think even up to the day he passed, he was probably in his 80s and he was still going to shows.
Yep,
that's amazing, and he got a lot of respect because anybody who knows anything or has a heart, you see that dude, you're like, I hope I'm at shows when I'm at that age. And he was like helping tape, film, and record those shows. Yep. So nothing but love for those guys. And Deep Six actually helped change. He helped bring us back. Besides the Spaz guys, because the Spaz guys did a split record with us. Mm-hmm. You're getting a lot of history out of me, but the guys from Spaz did a split that started the wheels turning. They sold like 5,000 of those singles, and I was like, what? Because I thought nobody would care. That was my thinking. I'm like, yeah, if you guys want to put this out, we got an old demo track that hasn't been used, and they sold 5,000 of them. I was like, you guys are insane. And then Bob picked us up, and just as a friend, he just started reissuing stuff, putting out newer records, was always very supportive, and he helped rekindle the flame, so to speak. And so, yeah, Deep Six, he helped us out at a time when some labels weren't even paying attention. But what's funny, he does that, and then all these labels start paying attention,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've been on a band that worked with Bob on Deep Six, and you're absolutely right. His conviction, he's fair, and actually he goes above and beyond, man. He gave us more copies of the vinyl than we really deserved, and it was
above and beyond for sure.
And you call him up and you ask for something. Yeah, you got it, man. It's totally cool. He's just so down to earth, and like you said, real. Doesn't have a shady bone in his body, which, like you said, is rare in this music industry, and unfortunately, even the underground. We run into these weirdos. I mean, even people that you jam with can be weird sometimes, obviously. So it's like it's refreshing when you run into a Bob, and that's cool. That Bob's the perfect template, like you said. If you're talking to somebody, they remind you of Bob, then they're good people, and that's a good person to work with. I wanted to real quick too, because Bob and I loved Blasted in Bangkok, so I got a song real quick. We'll dedicate it to Bob and Grandpa real quick.
Totally.
And then, we'll get back to it, because then I want to talk about some of the record store stuff. But this is beginning of the end, man. This is a song that Bob and I both love. So this is for Grandpa.
Right on, man.
Everything I had before, make me
Yeah.
The demo, man.
Killer.
That's pretty awesome, man.
Blasted in Bangkok, man. That was also a saying that me and my buddies would say, hey, what happened last night? Dude, I got blasted in Bangkok.
You know what, dude? That's awesome you're telling me that, because those are the stories I love the best. I remember a guy telling me from Denver, he said, like, in class when they were in high school, they were like, dude, what are you doing tonight? Well, I'm going to be like Katon, because they say my name that way. They Katon. So he had to ask me what was the right way to say my name, but I thought it doesn't even matter. Just that you were saying that cracks me up, you know. I love those stories because I'm the same kind of person. Like, whenever there's something that I dig, I'll use that in my own like language when I talk to my bros, you know.
Oh, absolutely, man. You got to do it. And Katon and Hirax are part of pop culture now for us. So it's like, got to use it.
Crazy, man.
So yeah, we were talking about record stores, and I mean, I know that you worked at a few, but the legendary one is Zed, man.
Yeah.
I found some old Zed flyers. You know, some of this stuff I'm still learning on this application or whatever. So once I put it into the Filmmaker, maybe I can do some editing and maybe zoom in on some of the flyers a little bit for the people that maybe they can see a little better. But yeah, these are some of the old flyers of Zed Records in Long Beach. So obviously you probably started going there just like I started going to Wild Rags. I ended up working there. So, I mean, you know, I remember Mama Z, rest in peace. I remember, you know, Big Frank, and there was like, you know, we made friends like idiots like me. I'd spend my whole paycheck at these record stores, you know, and I remember like Kirk and Mike and obviously Ron Martinez, our mutual friend. And then I remember running into you too. And it was always cool, like seeing, you know, to us, like legendary cats like you and Ron Martinez working at this record store. So tell me about that and how legendary that place was, you know.
Your memory's scary, dude. Scary, all the shit that you can remember.
That's when I was still sober, man. Trust me, I had my era.
all those people you mentioned is all true. I mean, even to mention Kirk, like you're kind of deep cutting even on the humans that were involved in this scene. But no, that store was like an institution. I got lucky to work there. I think you feel the same way about Wild Rags. I mean, for me to be hands-on and see like demos and packets with demo tapes in them, and you know, 7-inch singles like that were handmade, where guys folded the covers. All that stuff was in like going to college for me. I learned a lot being in that store. Zed Records is still, I'm sure, to a lot of people, the greatest store, especially in this area, that ever existed for punk and even crossover metal. Because like we were carrying Slayer and Metallica shit, like all those singles, like those 12-inch Metallica singles and the Slayer Blood Pack. You know, even the 12. I think there was a 12-inch single for Criminally Insane. We had we had all that kind of crazy shit. In fact, back then, some of the stores got banned for carrying even Slayer.
Right.
Like us, and there was another store called Middle Earth, which was one of my favorite stores. Downey, California had Middle Earth, but Zed was an institution. I got to work with guys that taught me a lot, like being around these other guys that turned me on to bands like The Birthday Party or The Replacements, and you know, there's another
cool indie rock and stuff like that.
Stuff that I would have. I would have never had a clue about any of that shit because I was pretty much metal and punk, and that's it, you know. But working at those stores opened me up to, you know, Babes in Toyland and the Lunatics, all these female punk bands that I probably would have never known about, you know. So that store was a good education, but it also was good because I was open to that kind of shit anyways, because, you know, from my crossover punk stuff, it was just another extension of that to me. But working for Mama Z, she was awesome because she had me calling bands. She's like, listen, I don't care what you have to do, but you contact these bands directly because it's cheaper. So she wanted me to get a hold of bands at their homes, like the Dead Kennedys. I was buying records from Jello. I was buying records from Minor Threat. I would call the Minor Threat record label and get stuff direct from them. Even at what's crazy, that's how good my memory's still pretty good too. But when you played that first video clip from Fender's Ballroom earlier, I remember the drummer from Minor Threat sending me the shirt that I'm wearing on that clip. So I'm like, that's that shirt that, you know, the drummer from Minor Threat sent me, you know. But working at that store got me more involved in learning about, you know, even distribution, buying singles to where we could sell them at a good price. Back to that, like the reason we wanted to cut out the middleman, obviously we wanted to make some money, but it also kept us from banging up the prices too high, because whenever you buy from a few distributors, that cost gets passed on to the fans. The fans end up being the ones that have to pay for that. So, dealing directly with bands like the Dead Kennedys, Black Flag. I used to go to the Black Flag SST Records office and pick up records directly, so that way they wouldn't have to ship them, because that would have been more money on top of the records. So Mama Z, I owe that to. That was the owner of the store, Zed Records. Her son ended up running it for her, but she actually owned it, and she was the brains behind the whole thing.
Yeah, no, she was cool. And like I said, obviously it seemed like Big Frank was the ringleader just because he was this huge guy, but he was a big teddy bear too,
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Totally knowledgeable. Everybody that worked there was knowledgeable. And obviously I think once you and Ron stumbled in there, it was like, if Katon and Ron are working there, this place definitely is the shit, So I think that brought a lot of people there just to come talk to you guys. But then you guys are, music freaks too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You guys know what you're talking about. And it's just like you said, then you started getting exposed to all that. We had MTV 120 minutes, it's like when Headbangers Ball would end, there's Yo MTV Raps in 120 minutes. And it's like a lot of people are like, wait a minute, this other stuff's not too bad, to be honest with you. So this stuff's pretty cool. And 120 minutes and, finding out about Meat Puppets and Sonic Youth and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of stuff came out of that. People don't even realize, like even the Melvins and Helmet, all that stuff, Soundgarden, all that shit came out of that. So it was another new era. Obviously some trends come and they crush shit for a while. Obviously the grunge thing came and it crushed a lot of shit, but metal still, over the years, man, people just kept that stuff going, whether it was in the States or outside of the States, in Europe or South America. Metal, for some reason, has always had that grassroots thing where you just can't kill it. So, like, we were selling that stuff, too, through those stores. Like, it was amazing. Even though Zed was primarily a punk store, we were selling all the heavier, if it was Venom, Motorhead, that kind of shit, we were selling it.
Right. No, that's awesome. That was, like you said, that was just such a great store, I
owe a lot of my knowledge to that store, and I'm proud to say it. I worked with a few of the guys. I worked with Frank primarily, and I worked with another guy, the owner's son, Mike Zed, and I also worked with this dude named Raul, and Raul was like a dictionary of music, so I learned a lot from him, and basically all those three guys, I learned a lot. Mama Z just taught me more about being aggressive and making sure I got the records in store. But I had stacks of singles, Misfits, Minor Threat, whoever was one of those bands, like the Dead Kennedys. I had the 7-inch, Nazi punk 7-inch with the armband with the Nazi swastikas X'd out. I had tons of those on the wall. I sold hundreds of those a week. Like even the stuff like later on in the 90s, I remember buying 100 CDs. It was like this band was basically manufacturing their own CDs, and that band was Sublime. I sold like I sold 100 a week of their own label CD. Every week I'd order another 100.
That's crazy. I remember when they were kind of blowing up at that point, just locally. It was kind of like similar to No Doubt. They were just playing the party circuit. You'd run into them at house parties. Obviously you were busy doing your thing, and so was I. So I wasn't really doing a lot of that. I was playing in bands and focusing on that at the time.
But you're right, you were playing locally, and it was kind of it's cool that it shows you your knowledge to know that them and No Doubt pretty much blew up at the same time, and they were also starting to play together, which was a smart move. For that style of music, it wasn't really my thing, but I also knew the business side of it. Like, we better carry that stuff, because where Zed was at was right down the street from Long Beach State University, and those college kids ate that shit up when it came to alternative, ska-based rock.
Totally, yeah, absolutely, man. So that's a lot of the, there's still cool record stores around. Obviously, Bionic and the Dark Realm and Radiation Records and even Amoeba, it's a huge, conglomerate, I guess you could say, or whatever, but it's still a cool store. They got a lot of really good stuff in there. And
it's a great store. Like you got to take the good and the bad. I mean, they got to make money. They got to put them damn stars out on the sidewalk and have Billy Idol out in front of there. I mean, right. All that shit helps the store. It gets people in the doors. And then I think what's kind of it's kind of like the best of both worlds, and it's the beast that you got to feed because you got to keep the lights on. So but also they're selling a lot of underground stuff too, and that helps. So it is what it is. I hate to use that term because that's a hipster term, but it is what it is. You got to have what it is. You got to have the best of both worlds. You get the underground, but you also got to sell the big shit. You have to sell that because that's what they carry. Taylor Swift because it helps keeps the lights on.
Yeah, exactly. A business is a business, unfortunately. So there is a lot of aspects that you and I don't really want to deal with. We're not that type of cat, but some can. That's why I don't work in the music industry. Really, it's just if it becomes a job in that sense, it's not really fun anymore. What's the purpose of it? Yeah,
if you can bridge your passion, and get your music to where it's at a level where you can actually take care of things, and then you've won. It's you're still winning even if it's just where it's your passion and you're doing it because it's something you love. But if you can also bridge it to where it can get you around the world and pay off some bills, then that's a good thing too.
Yeah,
totally. Just don't give up your integrity. That's the main thing. Don't give up your integrity.
Right. No, absolutely. So the one of the things I wanted to touch on too was the whole Lemmy statue thing. So I know you were involved with that at that sense. So touch on that a little bit. I mean, obviously for those a lot of people know, but maybe if you don't live here in Southern California, Lemmy was obviously he's a transplant, but he pretty much for a long time he lived here and he was pretty much a fixture all around LA, but mainly the Rainbow. He had his spot and everything. And he was obviously he's our god, in that sense. Well, he was just a legendary figure. So,
this might be one of the most hardcore interviews I've ever done. No, this is a great thing to talk about, and it was a big part of me and my wife's life. My wife helped me out 100% on that. And what happened was, obviously, I'm wearing the shirt too, but I love Lemmy. Like to me, he's one of the guys I feel like I owe some money because starting out, there it is. Dude, that's a big part of my life right there. But starting out, Hirax was influenced by, I'd say 5 big major bands, and Motorhead's one of them. Obviously, the speed thing. When we heard the speeds they were playing at and the brutality of, especially for that time. I mean, for the 80s, Motorhead's one of the fastest and heaviest bands of all time. So the statue was something where I got up one morning. I found out he had died that morning, the day that he died, and I posted, I think Lemmy deserves a statue at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And the reason I did that is because I really did feel that way. I didn't think it was going to do what it did, but I felt that way because he hung out there. That was his second home. Seriously, like he lived 2 blocks, maybe 3 blocks, but 2 or 3 blocks from the Rainbow. His house was down the hill, and he said his favorite part of leaving the Rainbow was that he walked downhill to get back home. He said the toughest part was walking up the hill to get to the Rainbow. But so I seen him a couple of times there and met him a couple of times and seen him around, obviously, because if you went to the Rainbow enough, you would see him out there playing this video game. Mm-hmm. And that's what's kind of cool about where the statue's at. It's right behind where he used to play the video game all the time.
That's awesome.
On Facebook, I put he should get a statue, and what ended up happening is everybody, like a lot of people, started responding to it, saying, "Dude, that's a great idea." And then somebody said, "You need to do I guess it's where you put up a petition, like you go and make a petition, and you put that up, and then people can come in and say, they think that there should be a statue, basically a petition to get this statue going." So I put it up. And like before I knew it, I think there was like before noon that day, there was like 6,000 people plus saying, "Yeah, you got to do this." And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And my wife at that time was like, "Dude, we don't even have time to do this shit. What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know what got into me. I'm like, I love the guy. And she's like, well, okay. And then so she's like, that's a lot to get involved with. And I go, I know. And I go, also, it's Motorhead fans, which will kill you if you don't do a good job. You know, I knew I was getting myself into something crazy, but I didn't expect it was going to get even bigger. So what happened was then the Rainbow contacts me and they go, listen, you've been running with this thing and now everybody's talking about it. And we just want you to know you have our blessing if you want to do it. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? But then I'm like, I can't turn around on this because, for one, Lemmy's one of my heroes. You know, it was a time that I probably shouldn't have done it because we had so much other stuff going on. But anyways, fast forward, we put up it was before there was really GoFundMe. It was a different site, but the reason we use it is because it had the lowest where they take money or percentage out of the money. So we want to do this to where we don't end up paying all this money after people donate all this money to help the statue. So I think it was I forget the percentage, but it was really the lowest out of all of them, even lower than GoFundMe. So I wish I could remember what company it was right now, but my wife found it. She did so much work on this. I still owe her for all the work she did. So we end up getting the okay from the Rainbow. And then, so we put this site up, and before we know it, there's 4,000, 5,000, and this is in a short amount of time, but we're still we're way off the mark because there's so much more that needs to be raised because making a statue is not easy. But anyway, So the money goes up a bit more, and so people are really starting to get revved up, and then I'm doing DJ gigs around town where I'm having people just come out in person and signing. I had a paper petition. So we're getting all these signatures, and some of the clubs are actually packing out to where people can't even get in. They're just coming to sign this Lemmy petition.
Wow.
And then what happens, which takes it next level, is Motorhead gets wind of it. The people that run it, even after Lemmy passed, the manager, I'm trying to remember his name, but so they get involved and they go, listen, we're going to just post it on our website and see what happens. So they post the link to the donation page, and it goes crazy. It goes nuts. My wife put these things on my phone where I'd be notified whenever there was money donated.
Ding, 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 ding.
It was just going ding, 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 ding. I'd be out with her, and I'm picking up my phone. I'm like, this is crazy. So we end up raising over the amount that we need. It's another $3,000 or $4,000 over. We get the statue made, and of all places, that statue was made in Utah, which is kind of crazy to think about. Yeah. Lemmy statue being made in Utah, of all places.
Right.
The company was great. They just really wanted to do it. You know, they this is an honor to be able to say we did Lemmy statue. The artist put his time in. We had this really cool artist from LA. He lived down the street from the Rainbow. He did the whole clay figure. I saw the statue from ground up. I saw it from when it was tinfoil before they put the clay on it to make it a clay figure. And then they would run it by me. They were sending me, once they started carving the clay out to make the bronze that was going to go over the clay, they were sending me all the images of the face coming to life and the body and I saw the back of it, the pants, even the stitching on the back of the pants, which nobody sees because it's
wow.
So I got to see it from the ground up. What ended up happening is we paid off the statue. And I was really proud of that because I didn't want to screw this up. Like I said, it's Motorhead fans, man. I mean, we had one fan. Actually, I'll tell you what it was. We had Warlord Clothing donate $666 to that, which I thought was great. That's total Bruce being who he is.
What's up, Bruce?
Yeah, Bruce is the man. $666 to help build that statue. That's just one donation. There were many.
Yeah.
We had over 800 and something people donate money. And I'll tell you what I found kind of almost offending. None of them were the rock stars that talk about Lemmy, how much they love him. It was all fans.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was the diehard fans, but I was like, where's the Foo Fighters? Where's Metallica? They could have paid for it themselves. In one swoop. It would have been nothing for those bands to pay for the statue. But what was great about it, it was all the fans, people like you and me, donating money to this statue. And then what we did is, because one day, back to my wife being awesome, we were walking up to the Rainbow after we had finished paying off the statue and it was being made and shipped. They shipped it in a big wooden crate from Utah the owner actually rode with it. He drove it out from Utah to the Rainbow. I remember when it was sitting in the back before they even brought the statue out. I remember the night it arrived and I went and knocked on the wood because it was still in the wooden crate. But we were walking up to the Rainbow after we paid off the statue, and my wife saw Wendy Williams, Ronnie James Dio's wife, was sitting on the patio. And my wife goes, we should give her the rest of the money that's left over for the statue for the Ronnie James Dio Cancer Fund.
Oh, nice.
So that's what we did. We used the money for that statue so awesomely. We paid off the statue. The Lemmy statue was paid off in full for the Rainbow, done deal. And then we gave the rest of the money that was left over to Wendy Williams, and she personally thanked us and came up to me. I was doing another gig at like an art gallery, and she came up and with Lemmy's girlfriend, which was heavy because she had just lost Lemmy.
Yeah.
And they both thanked me and like grabbed my hand, and Lemmy's girlfriend looked like she was going to cry. She's like, you helped immortalize him. And I was like, thanks. Like that's the biggest compliment I could get, like having Lemmy and Ronnie James Dio's wife thank me for the work that we did. And the Rainbow obviously thanked us too. And I love them. They're like a family to me. So the Magalari family at the Rainbow is amazing.
Yeah.
So it worked out great. I never thought this thing would do what it's doing. Like people now propose to their girlfriends for marriage in front of that statue. I mean, all kinds of crazy shit happens. And obviously there's many photos. You see so many photos of people taking pictures with that statue. So I'm pretty proud. I'm very proud of it, actually, that me and my wife basically put that whole thing together. We busted our asses. My wife, this is one special thing about the statue. A lot of people don't know this. If you look on the right side, because it's in a big box, it's a display case that the statue's in. On the right side, there's a big list that my wife hand typed out or hand wrote all the names that are basically. Well, she hand typed it, and then they used it like an artist to handwrite all the names. All the names of everybody that donated to that statue are on the side of that statue. So we even put their names, everybody that wrote, because at first we were going to do it not that way. And then we decided we're going to write back to every fan that donated money and say, hey, if you want your name on the side of the statue, which they all went crazy. They're like, yeah, I want my name on the side. There's a big list of everybody that donated the money to make that statue.
That's killer, man. That's a great story. Plus, I mean, the way it all ended up is actually cooler. Like the fans, they're the ones that created this. You and the fans, you and Annie and the fans together created this for everybody to enjoy. It's a little cooler than Dave Grohl or Lars Ulrich just writing a check. Just handle it or whatever. It's not the same. This is like way cooler the way it ended up anyways.
You're totally right. You're so right. But I have to admit, I was just surprised. I'm like, well, if I was in Metallica, I would have said, dude, because I mean, if you look at the
that's our guy, man. That's our fucking god. You know what I mean? Like that. Without that guy, we're not him. And Sabbath. And you know what I mean? It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, if you look at Kill 'Em All Alone and go through the lyrics, there's a lot of Motorhead references there.
Absolutely. I mean, just everything about Kill 'Em All is just basically Motorhead. It's
a younger version of it. I mean, No Remorse says it all. But it's all good. Like you said, the fans, and that shows you how awesome Lemmy was. That the fans loved him that much.
Oh yeah, no, it just kind of worked out the way it should have. At the end of the day. So it's better that way. And like you said, you guys are proud of it, and the fans can be proud too, because those that donated could go there and bring their friends and family and whatever. Look, man, I was a part of this, so it's it makes it all the more cooler. And so you brought up Annie, your wife, the lovely Annie. We all love her too. And she's very important to, it's almost like you guys are two peas in a pod when everybody sees you out in public, and she's always with you, and it's not even a sidekick thing. It's almost like you guys are just this team, and it's important to have somebody like that, rocking with you. So, you definitely feel free to talk about her a little bit and how important she is for what you do.
Yeah, she's 100% right neck to neck with me, like side by side. It's neither. I'm not in front of her at all. Like this is my. I'm not trying to make it sound perfect. We've been through some shit. That's part of life. But she's my life partner. And I don't even think most of this shit would happen without her. Because, you always have there's people behind the scenes, and even though she doesn't get as much credit as she should, she's 100% involved. I mean, even with the Hirax, all of the logistics, travel, plane tickets, checking into the airport, knowing to be there 2 hours early before the flights, sometimes 3 because if it's international. Like, she is like a big part of our success.
Yeah, I know we've touched on that before, knowing you guys, obviously hanging out periodically when we get the chance. You've mentioned that before, and she's awesome, and just you could just tell with the vibe and everything. It's like it's a team effort, and without her, it'd probably be very difficult to get a lot of this shit done that you got to get done.
She does,
just the support aspect of it alone.
Yeah, and she also sees things that I don't, and she'll tell me like, this is a really awesome thing that she's been doing for decades now. 'Cause she's been with me 26 years now. But
wow.
The cool thing, like even with the band and after shows doing signings or before show signings and all that kind of shit, she's always pointing out to me or letting me know, like, if there's somebody in a handicapped person in a wheelchair that I can't see, or if there's somebody that's not as aggressive, because sometimes you got people that want to get something signed and they're not being aggressive, they're just cool. And those are the people that I want to take care of first, because I think that's really cool when you see somebody who's like maybe even shy, but they're wanting to get something signed. And you got all these other guys, which I appreciate the crazy fuckers too. But I think that like people that are handicapped and you can't see them sometimes because there's all these people jumping in front of them. So my wife always points that out to me and I take care of them. It's really great to have her perspective, even on just little things like that, because they matter so much. I mean, if you've got the balls to come to one of our shows in a wheelchair, I owe it to you to sign whatever the fuck you want signed.
Fucking A, man.
So like she helps that kind of stuff. And even like, dude, there's many stories, but I'm going to give you one of my all-time favorites about her. We're on tour in England, which is beautiful because if you play metal, sooner or later you got to go to England because it's fucking,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's the mother lode. So we're touring and we're having a great time, but we're insane as usual. This is back when there was even more drinking than usual. And we got done playing in Birmingham, which for us was huge because, Birmingham, so many great bands have come out.
Genesis.
So many bands, yeah. So we get back and we're staying in a youth hostel, which is awesome too, because they always put us in different places, but we're in a youth hostel. And we're partying with some of the bands that supported us, which is awesome. It's always cool to have bands in there that you're playing with. But all of a sudden, our guitar player back then, which was Lance, and this needs to be known because this is huge. Like, he ends up choking, but we didn't realize it was as serious as it was because we're all partying. We're like, yeah, fucking, is he just putting on a show? But my wife, who's smarter than all of us, realizes he's not joking. What had happened is we were talking, and this can happen, but we were joking around, talking shit as bands do, and he started laughing, but he hadn't finished his drink down his throat. So he's choking, and I guess he panicked. And so he was trying to run to the bathroom because I guess he was afraid if he threw up in the room, everybody's going to be mad at him. But it's like, I would have rathered him throw up in the room. Yeah. I guess he was trying to breathe and not throw up because he didn't want to bum us out, but he was choking to death, and he actually didn't make it. He actually got hung up on the door handle because he was trying to rush to get to the sink, got hung up on the door handle, so he's blacking out, and his eyes are rolling in his head. My wife's the only one, like, I was like, quit fucking around. My wife was smart. Like, his own brother was there. His brother was in shock. He didn't know what to do, but my wife got Lance. I don't know where she got the strength from, picked him up and Heimlich the fuck out of him, and he actually came to life. He was actually like freaked out. He was like, "Get your hands off me!" After she got him back, like his eyes, he was turning purple.
Yeah, he was just in shock.
Yeah, and so when he came to, he's like, "Hey," and she's like, "Dude," and like we realized he almost fucking died. And
wow.
Then he had to go outside to get air because like after he came to, he needed air. So, but yeah, that's how. Like, if my wife wasn't there, we would have had to fucking ship our guitar player back in a box back to the United States. So yeah, she's always sees things and is looking out for us. And I can't tell you, man, she's invaluable. Like, she's like such an important part of what we do. And But the cool thing is over the years is people have noticed that, or they've seen her on stage setting up stuff, because she sets up a lot of the gear when we're playing, make sure that the sound man has the intro, all that kind of stuff. She's really about all the technical shit. But fans have started to know, they say hello to her or yell her name from the crowd. And it's pretty cool when she'll come out to do stuff now, because people, the ones that really know their shit know she's a big part of what we do. So, I appreciate it that people are nice to her and say good shit to her. It means the world to me. It's pretty touching, but I'm just telling you the stuff that a lot of people don't know. So thanks for asking the question. My wife, Anna, is a huge part of it. And she's also Norwegian, so they pronounce her name different. Even I had to learn how to say it because, before I got with her, I used to spell her name wrong because I'm American. I didn't know that the Norwegians, they spell the way they spell, and even the way they pronounce stuff. That's why I used to jack her name up all the time. But yeah, it's Anna in Norwegian. Anna. So, but
all right.
She's a total Viking, and we're lucky to have her. And she's strong as hell. The way she saved Lance's life was crazy. Even we were just like, all of us were like standing back, like, what do we fucking do? This guy's dying. And when I knew it was serious is that his color started changing. He got purple, and his eyes were rolling in his head. That's when it got freaky. We were like, fuck. But nobody besides my wife really knew what to do. Yeah.
Well, thankfully she was there, and she knew, and she had the right mind to do it. And, that's another aspect of why she rules, man. Saved his life, man. Crazy. Yeah. So. Well, big ups to Anna. Yeah. There you go. Oh, yeah. Let's chat about, you just recently sent me this pic. The mighty Legions of Metal Fest, which is one of the best fests that we have. I know Randy does some other stuff. I don't know if he's involved in this, but is this Bob's Fest? Bob Byrne or no? Yeah, Bob's a part of it. There's another guy named Shane Morrill. Hopefully I'm not butchering their names, but both really cool guys. The other guy's probably involved in there too, because also there's always people behind the scenes, like even with the club, Reggie's. A lot of great people at Reggie's. Reggie's is probably the number one, as far as I'm concerned, one of the number one clubs in Chicago to play at for metal. And we played there a couple of times. It's great. But that festival's awesome. They treat you like humans, like real human musicians, and it's a brotherhood and a sisterhood. So everybody that's there are really connected to the music. It's, you're going to get these festivals that are just about the business. This one's not just that. Right. There's business involved. They need to sell tickets so they can do the show. But there's a lot of love in it, and a lot of like vendors that are coming from other cities to sell their stuff. And no, it was an honor to play it. Like there's a few, like you said, one of the best festivals in the U.S. right now, besides say maybe, I don't know, the Milwaukee Metal Fest or the Maryland Death Fest. And there's another one I believe called Hell's Heroes. Yeah, Hell's Heroes. Yep. Yeah, I know there's a couple of other ones too. I just can't think of. Yeah. The Chainsaw Massacre Fest or something like that? Oh, yeah, that was McKenty's. I think he was doing that. I'm not sure if he's going to do another one. You guys, no, go ahead. He's another incredible guy. McKenty, he's fucking amazing. Oh, man, I mean, I credit him as he's the guy that got me into all the East Coast death metal stuff back in the day when I first started tape trading with him and pen paling. When he was in Revenant, I ran across him, and he's the one that showed me Immolation, Mortician, Suffocation, and Agoraphobia, and Apparition, and all these crazy bands on the Eastern Seaboard in Pennsylvania. And he's the real deal. He's the real deal. I'm actually surprised Hell's Heroes doesn't have their own festival yet. I'm surprised, you guys, did Hirax play Hell's Heroes at one point yet or no? Not yet. Okay, I'm sure you'll get on there eventually. I mean, I know that you guys are also doing Cali Death Fest later in the year. So that's a great one, obviously, and that's with Sodom, isn't it? That's based on the Sodom shows you're talking about, right? Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we have a good relationship with Sodom since the 80s. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean the Metal Legions Festival, the Legions of Metal Festival, I should say, Legions of Metal. Great people, and they did it for the right reasons. Like they're doing something that's authentic. And it's cool to see that, and then, like I said, you go to those festivals and you see metalheads that you've been seeing for decades or for years,
going to these shows. So when you're amongst the real people, that I would say that festival is all about the real.
Oh, totally, man. Yeah, no, Bob is a diehard maniac, and he's really into that, traditional heavy metal, speed metal, and thrash metal, early thrash metal and stuff. That's his thing. Yeah. And I know Randy and those guys, they're all their characters online too. Is that Midwest humor, that they just relentlessly rag on each other on social media, and it's comical. But they're back there drinking beers together, hugging it out at the end of the day and whatever. So it's good.
They're doing it right, and they bring together a lot of bands that probably normally wouldn't play together. So it's cool. Like even for us to play with Watchtower was awesome. So we enjoy those festivals a lot, and they kind of remind us of a lot of the European festivals because those are done very cool too. Especially the smaller ones like Headbangers Open Air and Keep It True, that kind of stuff, where you got that vibe where these fans have been traveling to see these kinds of shows for years,
Yeah, totally. And I know that, those are, that's cool. You guys are, playing two of the best festivals around. So.
Yeah, the thing that's funny, like, people don't realize, like, we really do take this shit so serious. There's actually a lot of the other festivals have offered, but we just got to make sure we're into it and that they're coming from the right place. I'm not trying to put us on a pedestal at all, but like, we really do like the guys from the Maryland Death Fest. They're great people. They get us. I mean, even with us and say like the festival out there in Texas, I believe that's Hell's Heroes. Is that what it is?
Hell's Heroes, yep.
Yeah, the thing with those guys, I think I was earlier mistaken when I said Hell's Heroes that time. But the thing about Hell's Heroes, they've tried to get us there 3 years in a row. And finally, something's going to happen. I can't really announce anything right now, but something's coming up where we actually work with them. But, and then even we got a message from, Jamie Josta? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, the Hatebreed guy, the Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Yeah, but we just never really felt totally comfortable. Like, for us, it's almost like, we got to feel really comfortable, and it's kind of the thing that we want to do. So we haven't done that yet. Not that we're too good for it, but we just got to make sure that it's the timing. The timing's got to be right on when we do these festivals.
Well, absolutely. Plus, you don't want to get screwed over either. And it's not like these, let's say Jamie Josta's a bad guy or whatever. But I mean, when you're that big time, it's hard to keep all your ducks in a row. And you got all these people working for you. Everybody, there's some shady people in the mix on some of those big corporate, deals. And it's like, and you know how they treat the opening bands and the mid-level bands. They treat them like dirt, and they kiss ass to all the big headliners.
And there's also a lot of people pulling strings, and that's one of the things we don't go for that shit. So we'd rather pass on it if we feel that there's going to be any of that stuff going on, because there's a lot of management, there's a lot of PR people involved, there's a lot of bands that have somebody that can get them, in a certain spot. And we really do prefer to let the music do the talking, but we're also not going to bow down and be screwed over by bullshit either. We just want to, it should be a level playing field is the way we look at it. Just give us a fair share and we'll do it,
Yeah, totally. I know that, I was lucky to play Maryland Death Fest twice now with different bands, and they're great, man. Evan
awesome.
and Ryan are fair. They got a great crew, Jessica and them, and, the roadies, the security guards, everybody's so pro. They got great equipment. They take care of you. You ask for shit, they give it to you. And it's like,
and they also know, they know the bands, they know, okay, we get. It's not like just the guy that booked it. No, the people that work for the guy that booked it know who the bands are. So it's pretty cool, and to bring those kinds of bands together, like the Maryland Death Fest, is pretty for those different genres. It's pretty diverse if you think about it.
Yeah, totally. Even the little offshoots they do, Netherlands, California. They did what I think they were doing one in Mexico at one point. And it's, they're pretty smart about who they get and, the kind of differences here and there. I mean, they do work with some of the same bands, but, a lot of people want to see these bands. Everybody wants to see Sodom. It's not like you get the chance to see Sodom all the time.
Yeah, especially in different areas. I mean, for Sodom to be going into the Bay Area, playing San Francisco, and then even the New York show. I mean, it's one thing to play in Maryland, but especially for us and Sodom on the East Coast is going to be nuts, So,
New York City, dude. That's brutal.
We look forward to those things, but it's great when you have people like the Maryland Death Fest that are creative. And also it takes a fuckload of energy. to do these things, like to put all that shit together logistically. I mean, even when they do shows in other areas, they've got to take care of the staging, this you know, the back line.
Oh, it's nuts. These cancellations now are crazy too. You know, I can only imagine the stress.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in charge of that shit. When you
Fuck that.
What is it now? Some of these festivals have 100 and 250 bands, and you know,
totally
nuts.
The fans start freaking out because this band can't get in, you know, to the U.S. from Sweden, and it's the promoter's fault, you know. But no, it's the fucking government. They're being weird again about letting musicians in, and it has nothing to do with the Maryland Death Fest people. But
it's normally it's normally the government. It's not the promoter.
Right. Yeah, no, it's getting worse. Unfortunately, you keep seeing these stories about it. Now, I remember I was just texting you like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I hadn't talked to you in a while last year at one point, and you were on your way up north to play the gig with Gary Holt and a bunch of the Bay Area legends up there.
Yeah.
Now, I remember it being some sort of tribute thing. Can you touch on that? What was that exactly?
That was pretty heavy. You know, I think what's cool, like with all the metal guys, we try to, when we can, we try to look out for other musicians. And what happened was Tom Hunting was going under the knife. He was going to get a surgery. The drummer from Exodus was going to get a surgery done. And the band, what's cool about Exodus, they all bonded together, but they put together a benefit, and they really didn't want to play, but they knew that it would actually help. So what ended up happening is, and they don't get to play together that often, but Rick Hinault, the other guitar player that was very important to the Exodus lineup over the years, to me, he's Gary's right-hand guy. Like, they played together for decades, you know. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guys that play in Exodus now, but the H team, you know, that team of guitar players is, you know, hands down one of the best in all of thrash metal. So what happened with Gary, I mean, I'd gotten a message from the guitar player from Forbidden, Craig Lucero. Yeah. He sent me a message, and at first I didn't really think it was, you know, I'm like, yeah, this can't be true. Like, he's like, you know, we want you, and Gary Holt wants you to come jam with us up in the Bay Area. Because I was originally just going to DJ, as you know, giving that to help out this cause, and because I had done one before with Sean Killian from Violence. There was a big benefit we did for him. So I mean, the Bay Area to me is also a part of Hirax history. So I try to help those bands, even though I'm very proud to be a Los Angeles dude. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, totally.
Super fucking proud of that. But the Bay Area is part of the family too. So
the scene up there is always ruled, man. It's so tight, and so many great bands and artists, and
they're way tighter than we are, which should be changed.
They are.
LA bands should actually kind of bond a little bit more together, because that's what's kind of hurts us, that, you know, there's not more shows where everybody plays together and all that. The Bay Area,
agree. We could learn from our Bay brothers and sisters for sure, man.
For sure. That's why they're strong. You know, they realize there's more power in them coming together than being split up. Yeah. But, so then I get a message, because I'm not getting back to them fast enough. I get a message from Gary Holt, and he's like, dude, the way he put the message was great. And Gary knows if he calls me, I'll probably do it, because I do love the guy. Like, I've known him. He's one of the first guys that I got to meet outside of the LA scene, where like we played the Ruthie's Inn, and it was Gary Holt, Cliff Burton, James Hetfield, and two Exodus roadies. One was a guy named Toby Rage. The other guy was another guy named Andy Airborne. They were standing in front of us our first gig at Ruthie's Inn. Like, the first time we played Ruthie's Inn, it was Gary Holt, Cliff Burton, James Hetfield, Toby Rage, and Andy Airborne standing in front of us, which gave us a little bit of pressure, a little bit of anxiety, having those guys stand right in front of you while you play. First show in Berkeley, Ruthie's. But so when Gary sent me the message, I pretty much caved to that. I'm like, yeah, I'll come up and do it. And it was great. I mean, I should have jumped at it from the get-go, but I was a little hesitant. I'm not really that big on doing those big rock star all jam things. Like, to me, I don't know. I mean, everybody has their thing. And I've never really been a big covers guy. I mean, that's why Hirax, if you've noticed with Hirax, not Phantasm's different. I did a cover with that. But with Hirax, we've never done any covers. I just think it's kind of cool when you stick to your own shit. That way you can't butcher somebody else's song when you're doing it.
Right.
But they wanted me to come up and do an Exodus song, and I did, and I'm actually glad I did it. At first, I wasn't into it, and then I did it. And it was also an excuse to play with Rick and Gary, and that's kind of marked off the list because I really have respect for them. Like the first time we played with them, I was pretty much blown away. The first time they didn't even have an album out. The first time I saw Exodus, and they were so good. I was like, these guys are going to be one of my favorite thrash metal bands of all time.
Yeah, bonded by blood. The rest is history.
Without a doubt, man.
Definitely. No, that's fucking awesome. So obviously that went well, and Tom's still with us, and he's still one of the best drummers ever, and he hasn't missed a beat. A lot of bands, obviously, like especially with older, the rest of the band's older. The formula now is you got to get a youngster on drums, so you stay, you keep that that old school energy. Have that youngster on there, so he can just, blast away and keep that speed going. But
it does matter.
Tom, holy shit, dude, he's still better than most of the youngsters that are out there.
Yeah, I'd say he's number 2 when you start looking at obviously, I can't downplay the importance of Charlie Benante. He's a great drummer.
Oh, he rules.
Very good drummer.
But we're all Lombardo guys, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but Tom Hunting's right up there in that list. I mean, I think the reason he doesn't get enough credit is because Exodus is such a force as it is.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But when you break it down, like he's right up there with guys like Lombardo and also Charlie Benante. Like if you want to go top 5, I would put Tom Hunting right in there. And also when you start dissecting even their later records, the dude's putting on a drum exhibition back there. It's insane. Yeah,
I think technically he might be better than anybody, technically wise. I just Lombardo's like the John Bonham of thrash metal. So I think that's what we all relate to is just how hard and crazy he hits. Tom is he's a machine. He always has been.
He's relentless. And I'll tell you one of the secrets that I discovered about him, because we were down in South America. We did 2 shows together, which was awesome. We did Chile and another like outskirt of we did Santiago, Chile, and then we did another outskirt outside somewhere in Chile. But when you're doing those road trips, sometimes you start to it's a little blurry where else you played. But we did 2 nights in a row, and to watch Tom, those 2 nights in a row was phenomenal. And so after the show, we're partying, which is deadly. Like seriously, Exodus deserved that title. They're one of the most deadly party bands you'll ever play. I mean, to where people are falling down and shit. But I was talking to Tom, and I go, dude, seriously, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but what the fuck? How can you still do this at this level after all these years? And he goes, I live in the mountains, I live in a cabin, and I chop my own wood. That's how he stays heated up and stays warm. He goes, even when I don't like it, I have to go outside, chop more wood, and add it to the fire. So that's one of his workout things is just chopping wood. But that dude, talk about throwing hammers, throwing axes. This guy is
hey, don't fuck with Tom. He's got that natural strength.
But he seriously, it's 100% true. He lives in a cabin up in the mountains and chops wood. So that's probably great for his drumming regiment. But it's amazing.
Yeah. No, it keeps everything strong, but the technique too, because to chop that wood, you got to use a special technique. You can't just butcher it, with an axe. You got to do the right cut and everything. So,
and some nights I would walk behind the drum kit because when you're playing together, you got passes and shit. And I would walk back there and see what he's doing. And dude, he's not cheating. He's not got a bunch of stuff being sampled. This is the real deal. Like he's a real drummer up there playing night after night.
Oh yeah, just pure organic, no triggers, anything like that.
Yeah, amazing.
Totally crazy. Yeah, no, if I had a view like that, because I'm definitely not a drummer, but I always watch the drummers, so I like to if I'm able to get backstage like that and have a view, I always want to see something like that. And if I would be able to see Tom, that'd be incredible.
Yeah,
it's definitely been one of my favorites.
Like watching an octopus, man.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I've been fortunate to see him many times, and the last time down in South America, especially at our age, because he's probably at least as old as I am. He's got to be 60, and to be slinging wood like that, impressive.
Yeah, and it seems like he's not going anywhere anytime soon either. He's still at it. So
he's amazing.
If you still got it, fuck it, man. Age is just that number,
He's unbelievable.
That's awesome. So yeah, it sounded like that went well up there, and I just ran across those pictures of Gary, and that was cool, man. I remember you telling me about that, so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. But let's get into a little bit of the Faster Than Death.
Cool.
And let me see what I got here. So this is the first single, Drill Into the Brain. So we'll blast this. It's a real quick banger, and then we'll be back in a minute or so.
Yeah, for sure. Metal.
Metal.
Skies of damnation, conquerors to sin. Schizophrenia, drill into the brain with doctor medication, aggressive flashing out, hallucinations of evil, devil controls your soul. Drill into the brain with
There we go. So yeah, that's fucking brutal. That reminds me of the old school Hirax, you know, like that has that kind of hate, fear, power, short, sweet blaster, you know?
Yeah, we, you know, when we started working on this record, I kind of like, not, you know, it's one thing to revisit, but I also wanted to kind of show people that we still could do that kind of stuff. And I also wanted to keep in mind that you still got to make it memorable. Like the song should go by, but you should still be able to pick out some stuff where you go, shit. And I also wanted him to play it again. I'm like, that should be kind of our little joke with this, like write hooks and stuff, but still make it to where like, I got to play that again. Did I just hear that right? So that's kind of my thinking behind the whole record. Like when people hear the record, there's plenty of entertainment on it. There's 9 songs. Actually, one is a re-recorded version of Warlord's Command, which is off the first album, because next year, 2025, is 40 years of Raging Violence. So
wow.
I wanted to give a nod back to that record, so that's why we redid Warlord's Command. But there's 8 other brand new tracks, and they're pretty much just in your face. There's a couple of epic pieces on there too, but it's definitely, I think it's kind of cool where it's still us today, but we haven't forgotten where we came from, and that's always been a very important part of Hirax. But I think the people that when they get the record, they're gonna go, dude, these dudes did not forget where the fuck they came from, you know. So there's a lot of that going on, and then the production's really good. We got lucky; we got to work with 2 really great producers. Like the 7-inch is going to have the Bill Matoyer mixes. There's an EP coming out August 1st, but the full-length album, there you go, yeah. Which I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Can't wait to hold it in my freaking hands. And then I'll be seeing that on August 1st. The first tour date that we're doing over there is Dortmund, Germany. Us and Exodus starting off the tour there. And then right after that, probably a month or 2 after that, the full-length album will come out with a different mix, and people will definitely get their money's worth. The production's really killer. We haven't announced who the producer is yet, but we are going to pretty soon once the record's completed, because it's like just you're blowing smoke up their asses if it's not done, you know. So we'd rather wait till it's finished. But the guy, the little tip I will give is the guy who produced the record is very known. We got really lucky because I didn't think, you know, I just thought, well, I'm going to approach him. We'll see. The worst thing he could say is no. And he actually said yes. It's one of my favorite producers of all time. So
nice.
He's one of those guys that all of us, if you listen to metal, you have some of his records in your collection. So that's as much as I can say now. But I promise you, you'll be one of the people that I reach out to first when we finally can announce it. But it's somebody that's real special. And, you know, it's kind of one of those steps that I wanted to take with the band. I think when you start out doing music, it's like there's certain heroes that you hope to work with one day, and that finally, I mean, not that it hasn't happened, but this is, for me, a big one, a guy that his records have been with me since the day some of them came out. So I'm a big fan, but it's also great to be able to work with him, you know?
Yeah, no, fuck yeah, that's fucking awesome, man. Can't wait to hear that news and hear everything. And then there's so this came out first, and
Yeah.
that was basically you guys kind of just blowing the doors back with the new release. Obviously, you know, you wanted to get a demo out there, so
Yeah.
we can touch on this a little bit.
Yeah, it's really cool story. I mean, I feel grateful for the whole history of the band. You know, like I think we've stayed true to it, and we still work with like. First off, what happened is when we did the rehearsals, because we were doing pre-production for the record, we wanted to make sure we went over the tunes. We knew what we were going to do once we got in the studio to not waste time or money, because you know we don't have major dollars like some bands, and so you have to be smart. So we rehearsed, and the rehearsals came back sounding really good, because obviously today's technology, some of the recorders that you can use in the rehearsals are fucking great. And we knew that it sounded better than even some of the tapes that we had done in the early days, you know, of the early rehearsals and stuff, because the things have gone 110-fold since those days. The recording equipment's way better. So listening back to the rehearsals, we're like, well, we do need to give people a little bit of a listen, but we're like, it's pre-production, so why don't we just do all 9 songs? Some of them are going to change a bit, and to me that would be fun, because I know that I've heard rehearsals and demos of other bands that I loved, and it's kind of cool to hear the finished product. I really think that fans dig that kind of shit, like to hear
Totally.
what it became. So that's what those demos are going to be. I think when people get the final version of the album, they're going to be like, holy shit, this thing became a whole nother beast. And I think that's interesting to see that. So that's what that demo is a documentation of where we were at that time. And then it's morphed. Like even now that I've been listening to more of the mixes, we're almost done with it. We're 2 songs away. Like this has been the toughest album I've ever made. Like from beginning to end, the toughest. I mean, a couple of times I wanted to give up, but I'm glad I didn't. And normally I don't even get like that, but you know, we did it through a lot of crazy circumstances. The pandemic, you know, a lot of the songs were written during the earliest part of the pandemic, when it was really.
Oh wow.
And then we recorded when like they were just kind of starting to lift restrictions, so everybody was still nervous going into recording studios with everybody, because you didn't know where everybody had been, you know, that kind of shit.
Yep.
But we got through all that, and then even the recording process was tough. We had to do more takes than usual. Usually with a band like us, I like to get in there and do maybe 1 through 3 takes, because I want the drummer to stay fresh. The longer you go through takes, your drummer just starts getting beat to shit when you're playing fast shit. So, but we did more takes than I wanted to, but we still were able to capture it. And then we got it to Matoyer, which was a process to get it over to him. So those mixes are what the EP is, when the EP that's coming out on August 1st. But then it wasn't going fast enough, because we have people waiting to manufacture. You know, we got people waiting to do the vinyl version, the CD version, and the cassette version. So we're trying to speed that process up, and that's when we had to make a change on the mixing and the producing of the record. But I still wanted to preserve the Matoyer stuff, because I think that that's another piece of the history to this record, and I didn't want to just throw that away. And it also sounds killer anyways. Like the mixes that he did were already pretty on fire. It's just that the guy that we got to finish him up has taken it another level. And so it worked out great. You know, I still have a lot of love for Matoyer. It was just that the process wasn't going quick enough, especially when you've got record label people waiting to press records and CDs and cassettes.
Oh yeah.
You know, there are due dates. That's the problem with this whole thing, is like we recorded it a year ago. And so already waiting has been a nightmare. But when you've got people waiting to put it into production to produce it, that's a whole nother thing. And they have due dates, and they got to get them in, or the record won't be out on time for it. Like even this tour, it would have been nice to have the whole album, but I feel grateful even just to have a 4-track EP that people will be able to buy at the shows.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So yeah, the Faster Than Death demo, you know, and also what's crazy about it, first I sent it to a guy, just like sent him like a download link, and he was a friend of mine in Germany. He's like, dude, I want to do the cassette. So first it came out on cassette, and then it became where these guys in Germany, another guy from Germany and a guy from Japan were like, dude, we want to do the CD version. And then that came out, and all of it helped. So that it couldn't really hurt to put the demo out. Like I remember one of the guys in the band going, "Dude, do you think it's a good idea?" And I go, "Yeah, it's a good idea because not everybody's gonna get the fucking demo. Like,
Yeah.
I love that shit, but not all your complete diehards. Like, okay, the diehards will get it, but then there's the other section of metalheads who don't just, they're not as hardcore. They're not like looking for demos and
they want the album and that's it. Yep.
So I think we covered a good ground, and it also got the word out that there's a new record coming. So to me, it was a win-win, and it hasn't affected anything. It's only helped. Like even the single that you played, "Drill Into the Brain," putting that out a little early was a good idea. It really got the word going,
You know what you're doing, man. You've been doing this a long time. So you just tell everybody, hey, just jump in the car. We're good.
I think sometimes people try to be so business they forget about you still got to keep it real, and you can't forget where you came from. Like I know the underground still is the main reason we're still around. I'm not
pulse, like you said, the pulse. You still got it, man. You got 1 foot in the mainstream and 1 foot in the underground, and that's the beauty of a band like Hirax and someone like you, that you still have that connection. Yet you're connected with both of those worlds, and sometimes they do
they overlap,
they overlap, they cross, but not all the time. So
I'm good with that. I think you need to, like Slayer said, die by the sword or don't die at all. Like
there you go.
If you do this, then you got to realize there's necessary evils, but there's also good ways of doing it. And I know that we haven't lost our integrity. We're still doing what we want to do. And if we get played on the radio, fine. If not, fine, because the kids will still play it in the garage and in the back alleys where they're drinking beer. It's all good,
There you go. And Fenriz is still playing it in Norway, and and Gary Holt's playing it up in the Bay. So it's all good, man.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, even when I find out that people have gotten our stuff, it's surprising to me, some of the musicians that do listen to us, like guys from Rancid and people from Arch Enemy. Like when I hear that stuff, it's I can't complain.
Yeah, it is interesting meeting people in my travels. Even like I don't, I'm not going to name drop or anything, but somewhat famous people or whatever, they're fascinated with the old 80s and 90s stuff. So they'll ask about all the bands, Slayer, Hirax, Dark Angel. Yeah. I mean, that's the all those the main ones, the main bands from back in that day. Hey, I was Cryptic Slaughter and this and that, and I was this, I was that, So Hirax is in that group, all that old Metal Blade and Death Record stuff and the Venice stuff. I mean, everybody around the world is fascinated because that was definitely, regardless, Los Angeles didn't have the same, let's say the same explosion as like Swedish death metal, Florida death metal, Bay Area thrash, even Canadian thrash, but there was a lot of killer shit that came out of LA too in our own right. So
you're totally right. And I'll be honest with you, I think a bit of it was because it got downplayed, and I'll tell you why. Because we had the big explosion of the hair bands.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think that took a bit of the press away, and I think also a lot of people kind of fixated on like, okay, don't get me wrong, I love the Bay Area, but they were more known for the harder thrash shit, and that's fine. But we had hard shit down here, but then we also had Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and Rat, and I mean, the list is huge on that, But it's all good because to me, I still think that we hung with all of them. I think when people look at the history, like what's funny, we still always get mentioned with the Bay Area bands, and then even when you look at the Big Four, 3 of the Big Four were from LA: Slayer, Megadeth, and even Metallica originally. So out of the 3 out of the Big Four are from LA. So what does that say about Los Angeles? I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to bum anybody out, but you just got to you got to go with the facts,
Nah, and I mean, you're a LA legend in that sense, and I talk to fellow LA legends in that sense that have been around a long time and are still at it, and they feel the exact same way. It's like, you know what, man? It's tiresome getting overlooked in that sense, and I'm sure Chicago metalheads feel the same way because Chicago is an underrated metal city as well, just like LA in that sense, and it's a bummer getting overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the same time, you just got to be tough-skinned. It's okay, but as long as you know that you're putting out good output and that you're staying true to what you do, and the fans also are great. Like they tell you the truth, and that's what's great about metal fans. There's no bullshitting, man. There's a lot hardcore talk between metalheads, so they know. And like you said, Chicago definitely should be mentioned because they had Trouble, they had E-Trope, they had Snow White, many more bands. But I'm just saying those are the ones just rolling off the top of my head. So
sure.
like you said, you brought up Canada too. Canada had great output of bands, you know.
Unbelievable up there. South America, Canada, yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, so it's all good. I just think that, you know, the thing that was smart with the Bay Area too, though, is it didn't hurt that Metallica moved up there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that changed the game, you know. Now, the cool thing about the Bay, though, is they embrace us, too. Like you said, Gary and everybody. And every time I've been to the Bay with my musical output, you know, my bands and stuff, they've always, you know, open arms, man, open arms. That's part of why they're awesome. You know, that's part of why the scenes there thrive so much more, it seems like. Because even the modern death metal scene up in the Bay Area is a lot stronger, you know, these days. And the bands up there, they're blowing up and they're supporting each other and they're out there doing their thing, getting on the labels, touring, and you know, it's really strong. And it's just it's the same values that the Bay Area thrash scene had, you know, because it's a lot of similar people that grew up with it, you know.
Yeah, it is great. It's a great scene up there in the Bay, and they're great. Dude, those people have been decades into it. But you know what's funny? I think the big problem with LA is we take it for granted. Because we got so much cool shit here. It's ridiculous. I mean, okay, look at even the clubs and venues that exist now, whether it's, say, the Union. I don't know what they're calling it nowadays. It was called the Union. But
yeah, no, you're talking about
that place. And then even
Catch One.
Even the Regent.
Yeah.
I mean, just the amount of shows that have gone through the Regent I'm trying to think of, there's another place that they're doing, like Dark Angel just played there recently. They did a couple of nights there. Do you know the name of that venue?
I thought that might have been the Region, but maybe I'm mistaken. I know what you're talking about.
It was like the Telegram Ballroom or something.
Oh, yeah, the Telegram. Yeah,
I'm just saying, you start mentioning all that, and people take it for granted because we have killer shows all the time. And that's not even mentioning that 28 place or 1710? What is that place?
Yeah, 1710. That's where Dismal and Alvin and those guys do a lot of shows.
Yeah, ton of great shows there. So I almost think we take the LA scene for granted, but it's pretty damn strong when you think about the fans that there are in LA. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, we got some of the best fans here for sure. Some of the craziest shows. And even people from the Bay Area, my friends that play in bands up there, they come down here and go, fucking LA rules, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what a crazy crowd that was. And the other thing, too, I think is underrated is the Bay Area is tiny. And it's, you know, the land mass up there between San Francisco and Oakland, the East and West Bay, Los Angeles is fucking massive. And you got people in Pasadena, they don't want to go to downtown LA. They don't want to go to East LA and vice versa. Who wants to go to the West Side? You know, I don't want to go all the way to the West Side because everything's on a grid. We got all the freeways and the traffic and the crap. And, you know, so a lot of the fans in the different regions, I mean, you know, the diehards will go anywhere for a show if there's a cool place. You know, oh, yeah, I don't give a shit. I'll go to downtown. I'll go to the West Side. I'll go to South LA. I'll go to Orange County, go to the Observatory. I'll go to Pomona, the Glass House or whatever, you know. So
even when you think about it, not just Pomona, but Orange County, the Constellation Room and the Observatory, they're both in one. But I'm just saying, even the Observatory, all the shows in the last 10 years there, insane.
Oh, yeah. Legendary.
So, I think we take it for granted. I don't know what it is. But LA we take ourselves for granted, you know?
No, it's like you said, too. I mean, it's one of the only places on earth that you can literally, a certain time of year, you can ski in the morning. You can come down the mountain. You can go to the beach and surf. And then you can be in the downtown area having sushi in, you know, Little Tokyo. Totally. And then you can go out to the desert and go shoot stuff with your guns or whatever, all in the same day.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Just like you said, there's a lot to do here, a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But I love it, and like I said, I'm glad to be a part of it. I probably, even with the new record, we'll do a record release here. Probably, I mean, what's funny, another place that gets taken for granted because there's so many different stories out of there, but the Whiskey A Go-Go is probably where we'll do our record release show. Just because it's also in the middle. Like, it's like, you know, Hollywood is still pretty easy to get to from whatever direction, you know. So, but yeah, we're looking forward to the future for us, like, having a new record coming out, going back out on the road, you know, kind of getting our feet wet again. So it's a good time for Hirax, you know.
No, that's badass, man, and that's cool. I'm definitely proud of you and the band and everything that's going on with it. And I mean, over the years too, as I was looking at your catalog too online, it's I like the tons of splits and the live stuff and all these different releases and stuff and all the stuff you did with Bob back in the day. And that's cool. You just kind of kept it going. And I know like you're, discovering this, talking to you today, there's all these labels from all around the world that want to put stuff out because, Hirax is a legendary name. So that's fucking awesome. Yeah. One of the craziest pictures that I saw, I thought was somewhat hilarious because I was actually doing I did a radio show on Gimme Metal for the Ruin album back in 2021.
Right on.
And so it was like PR tied in with that.
Okay.
And I only did the one, and it got some listeners and whatnot, and it was awesome, but I was supposed to do 4 total, and I only did the one. And I know that, like I was mentioning in one of my other radio shows here on the channel, that I don't know if the Gimme Metal was going downhill at that point or what was going on, but they didn't have me back, and somebody asked like, hey, I thought you were supposed to do more shows. I was like, oh man, I didn't get the Dave Mustaine numbers or the, the singer of Amon Amarth, he had his own show, and I probably didn't have those numbers. So they're probably like, who the hell's this Mike Abominator guy? I was popping through, and I noticed this, and I was joking. I didn't have the Dave Mustaine. Oh yeah, Dave Mustaine has his own radio show, and I think this was like probably Liquid Metal on Sirius, but he was playing some Hirax, man. I thought that was fucking awesome. You obviously saw that because I think you posted about it.
Yeah, I was.
But no, I see the Gimme Metal logo right there. Yeah, this is the Gimme Metal show.
I've been impressed with Dave. I mean, what's funny, we once in a while in a very blue moon we'll cross paths, and he's still fucking cool as hell. Like I've always heard, even back in the day before he was super popular, all the nightmare stories about him. But I've never had those problems with Dave Mustaine. He's always been awesome. So years later, fast forward years later. And even back in the day, dude, he supported us like you wouldn't believe. Like he's one of the champions of Hirax, and it's I almost back to it again. I almost want to tear up because it's like, I would have never thought we'd be at this place as you get older, and you still friends. Like last time I saw him, it was like seriously emotional because we both were like we're still alive because he's been through a lot himself. So have I. Yeah. He was with his wife who. She's like, you've known him a long. I go, yeah, I've known him a long time. She goes, you've known him longer than I've even been with him. I go, yeah. We go, I knew him when he was living in Huntington Beach in an apartment. And the last time I was at his apartment, there was a party with Hirax and Metallica. And when we left, they couldn't find him the whole party. Like, where the fuck is Lars? And he was passed out in the front yard under a tree. That's where we found him when we were leaving the party. So Mustaine obviously had great parties, but always been a really cool dude. Even after he left Metallica, he would call us and say, hey, my manager's going to call you to get you on a show. So that's why we did the show at the Country Club with Megadeth, Hirax, Dark Angel, and Law's Rocket. That was all Dave Mustaine. He was still there for us. I probably should have took more shows because he offered more than that kind of stuff to us. But I didn't always take the shows. But I didn't even realize how great of a friend he was or would become. I took it kind of, like I said, about these other things for granted. But nowadays, whenever I see him, I just say, dude, thanks, because he's always been a champion for the band. And so when I saw that, I was blown away again that he's playing us on his own radio show. So he still keeps his ear to the ground, too, because it's not like I talk to him every week. But that he was even aware that we had a new record out and that he was playing Hellion Rising off that record, which is one of the tunes that we have to play live now. But yeah. What a great guy. I mean, it's like he doesn't need to do that shit. He doesn't need to help bands that were, it says a lot about his character that he is doing it. But I mean, he's known me since '83, and he's still been supportive. The last time I saw him actually was at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. I was working there doing sound upstairs, and when I was coming in, one of the bouncers said, "Hey, Mustaine's here," and he didn't believe that I knew Dave. So I'm like, "Well, take me to him." So he took me to the back, and I was. Because I don't see things like everybody else. I was surprised that there were like bodyguards and shit. But right when I was walking up, Dave goes, "What the fuck?" He goes, "What's up, Katon?" And the bouncer dude looked at me and goes, "So you weren't bullshitting me?" I go, "No, did we go back to like '83?" So anyways, I talked to Dave real quick. His wife was tripping because she had never met me before, but she was like, "Who is this guy?" I think she's not in a bad way. I think she's very protective of Dave, which that's a good thing anyways. But she was like, what the fuck, you know? And then, so I said, oh, I got to go up to work because I just got there to work. And he goes, I'll come up and see you when I'm done eating dinner. And he actually remembered it. And he came upstairs and hung out with me for a little bit and asked me what I was doing. And so, you know, he's still one of those good guys, even though you're going to, and I get it, you know, when you're a leader, stories get out there about you, including myself, where people think a certain way about you, but they don't even fucking know you. But Dave, like I said, for me, we've always been good with each other. I have nothing bad to say about the guy. You know, I mean, he had his bouts with Metallica, but like I said, back in the day, we were all partying like that. So, you know, you can't really point the finger when you were a maniac yourself, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting to hear that side. I think Dave's probably like sneaky into the underground stuff. You know, he just, you know, you don't hear it with the current Megadeth stuff because that's a factory. That's his corporate job now. You know, it's like his fan base expects a certain thing and it's totally different. He might still listen to all this crazy stuff that I think he came up with, you know?
I think he does. And I think the thing is, it's kind of hard to get away from stuff you love, no matter how big your band gets. Like, I get it. It's a machine, dude. Like, he's responsible for a lot of people, a lot of people's like well-being, like their paycheck depends on him. And he's the thing about Dave that is a fact. He's a very smart dude, no matter what anybody thinks about him. So he knows what he's gotten himself into. He's got a family. You know, there's things that got to get paid for. But you still got to give him hell of credit, dude. He's one of the guys that made thrash metal, as far as I'm concerned. So,
no, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, you can't take that away from him, you know, regardless of this or that. And, you know, I'm a big fan of the early Megadeth stuff too, you know, not so much the later stuff, but, you know, it's not for everybody or whatever, but people still love him, obviously. But yeah, you can't fuck with that early stuff. And the stuff he did with Metallica was awesome too.
Yeah, you can't
form the sound of that band as well, you know.
Oh, so. Yeah. To me, he's the balls. He's the fucking balls, you know. But I wish him nothing but the best, and I have nothing but mass respect for that dude, seriously. And so, like, you know, we're going to do what we do because obviously we're on a different page. Like, we do what we do. He's doing what he does, but just it's really cool that he would even kind of pay it forward and give us a few scraps and play us on those radio shows.
Yeah, no, that's fucking awesome. Real quick too, I wanted to touch on the whole DJ thing because you're known for that. Some people know you more for that these days of the events you're at or whatever. Because, you know, sometimes there's, I don't want to say normal or normies, you know, that might step into a club that you're at that you happen to be DJing. You know, in LA, people just kind of stumble into bars and clubs and stuff that aren't there to see bands or they don't even care. They're in the neighborhood and they're going to walk in. Yeah. So you'll see some hipsters come in or some people in suits, you know, some blue collar mechanics or whatever happen to stumble in or whatever. And you're playing some Judas Priest or some UFO and they're like, oh, fuck yeah, man. I grew up with that or whatever. So I know you being a music freak obviously helps, but tell me how that came about as far as like, you're almost like one of the go-to DJs in LA now.
Yeah.
For events. So I know you have a blast doing it. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was an honor, dude. Like, what's crazy is I'm a music geek, like everybody I know that's into metal. Like, we're fucking geeks, all right? So
yeah.
And then I started collecting records. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a kid, but I got back into it because before the records thing exploded again, now it's, you know, it's commonplace. A lot of people are buying records again, but probably about 15 years ago, I was going to the swap meets and I was like, I want to put some shit up on the walls in my pad. I want to get some stuff. And I thought swap meets are the best place because people are going to either discard shit or sell it for cheap. But I found this dude from Russia and this guy had all kinds of vinyl and he was selling it for like a pound for like $20, $5, you know, whatever. Some of the records were a quarter, you know, and so I ended up buying records at first just for, you know, to put covers up on my wall. And then I was like, some of these are in nice shape. So then this can help anybody that's into records. I went and I just went to Big Lots and I bought a turntable there. It was like $30, $35 or some shit. And then I started buying more records and they were cheap. It was really about the cheapness of it. I was going to the swap meets and if I saw a garage sale, you know, and picking up records. But before I knew it, also I'm pretty good at collecting. Like I worked in record stores, so I know what to look for. And my record collection started getting pretty good. And then I upgraded. I got a better turntable, that kind of shit. But before I knew it, I started getting offers to DJ. And I ended up working for the drummer from Social Distortion. He actually hired me to play it. He's got a bar/restaurant here in Long Beach called The Pike.
So he's a Hirax fan too, see?
Yeah, he's cool as hell. And then I realized, believe it or not, in the early days, us and Social Distortion used to practice right next door to each other in Santa Ana, California. And I'm like, dude, what are the odds? So anyways, I started DJing for him. The first night I DJ'd there were so many people. The cops showed up. It was great. I'm like, this is a hell of a way to start off. Like at the end of the night, the cops showed up and everybody had to leave the bar, but he was happy because he made, one thing is a lot of my friends are some heavy-handed drinkers. So anybody who owns a bar, they love that. And so a little bit later on, what happened was I got this message on Instagram. This is a little bit later, like a few years later. And I got this message from the Rainbow, and it's another one of those cases where I didn't believe it. I thought it was bullshit, so I didn't really get right back to it right away. And then the guy wrote again, and it was one of the other DJs. And he's like, listen, we got a spot open here, and we'd like to see if you'd like to DJ. And I'm like, yeah. So went up there, and I ended up working for 5 years at the Rainbow. And that's when I ended up doing the Lemmy statue and a few other things. And then I just started doing more stuff. I started doing, I've done the Grill 'em All Burger restaurant. I've done that 7 years. I've done the San Diego Metal Swap Meet for years now. I mean, I think I've lost count on that. But it's just stuff that I enjoy doing and working with people that I love. Like I love the guys from the San Diego Metal Swap Meet. Great people. The people that do Grill 'em All, they actually moved here to Long Beach now. So yeah. Their new place here in Long Beach, and it's amazing. I mean, if you're into burgers and decadence, like the burgers are stacked, like they're insane.
Grill 'em All rules, yeah. Anybody out there, if you haven't been there, it's in Long Beach now, so you head over there.
Definitely, and so I started DJing for those guys, and it's just grown. But I kind of when the pandemic hit, that's when I kind of slowed down because for one, I didn't want to be in rooms where there were no windows. Not that I'm not scared. But I also think that there's times when you don't need to take a chance. When
oh yeah, totally. We didn't know what was going on with that shit back then, man.
No idea. So yeah, but so I still here and there do it. But really, it was more out of just like it wasn't bad because I started making a little bit of money, and it was nice that I got to also DJ for people that I one night I was at the Rainbow DJing, and the fucking guys from UFO came in and they stayed for like 3 hours because they loved what I was playing. So it was pretty cool to play for UFO, one of my all-time favorite heavy metal bands.
Fuck yeah.
But then there's been bizarre shit, like where one night there was this pop star named Kesha, and they asked me to DJ for her, and they stayed the whole damn night. And all I did is I switched over. I just started playing like funky shit from the 70s, a lot of 70s funk. And I thought they were going to say, hey, we don't want you to DJ, but they no complaints. So sometimes it's what you wouldn't even, you just got to hang in there and do whatever you think might work if and it works out. But one of the most interesting nights was I was DJing and I saw this dude just standing outside of the DJ box at the Rainbow, because that dance floor upstairs, if it could only tell stories, it would be unbelievable. But I was DJing, and I look out, and there's this guy. He's dressed pretty cool, and he had a hat on. Really, you could tell it wasn't a cheap hat. Like when it's an expensive like cowboy hat. And I'm like, can I help you? Is there anything you want me to play? And he's like, nah, man, you're doing fine. And then he tipped me, and I never forgot him. But like a couple of days later, I see this guy on TV, and I'm like, that's that dude that tipped me the other night. It was Gary Clark Jr. He's like this big rock guy.
Oh yeah. Kind of has a Jimi Hendrix vibe a little bit.
Yeah, but I didn't know who the fuck he was. I just thought it was cool that he tipped me and he just said, "You're doing a great job." He didn't even want me to. He didn't even ask for like a request. He just goes, "Just keep doing what you're doing." So
that's cool. Yeah, he's a good guitar player, and he does some good shit too. Some of his music's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, but from working at the Rainbow, it was just a great experience. I stayed there for 5 years just because I got to work with an amazing staff of people and just the musicians, even if I wasn't into their stuff. Because like one night they asked me to take care of this guy named Post Malone, and I'm like, I don't even know who the hell he is because I didn't. I had no idea who this dude was. But he came in. He was a sweetheart. He wanted me to show him the booth and stuff. I was showing him how to work the sound, and I was letting him fuck around. I had him turn down shit like there were bands. People would be dancing. He'd turn it down, and they'd be like, what the fuck? And then he'd turn it back up. And then I find out later on, I go, I didn't know he was a big star. I mean, I had no idea who Post Malone was. And so a lot of great experiences working there. I mean, there's a guy named Dirty Old Bastard. He's a rap dude. He died not too long ago. But he came in one night. And
that's my guy, man. Old Dirty Bastard.
Yeah, he came in one night.
Love Wu-Tang.
And I kind of recognize him because you can't miss that dude. So I just gave him the mic and he started freestyle rapping and it was amazing. I'm like,
oh, dude.
Yeah.
I never heard that one. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah, so I had a lot of crazy experiences.
Old Dirty Bastard fucking freestyle. What were you playing? Just some funk, or were you playing like Cryptic Slaughter or something?
I always played a lot of heavy shit up there, but it usually worked out. Like, I mean, even when NAMM would come through, because NAMM, a lot of people go to the Rainbow at night.
Absolutely.
Because they're at NAMM during the day, and at night they go to the Rainbow.
That's party headquarters.
Yeah, but I'd have musicians in there just going nuts because I would just start playing, you know, all kinds of cool shit. And the metal dudes would love it. Like if I was playing like Paul Gilbert, he had a band called Racer X. I'd be playing.
Yeah, Racer X is badass.
Yeah, they'd lose their minds because, you know, if you're a guitar player, you can't help that, you know. But
totally.
So one of the best things was getting to work at the Rainbow and be there for 5 years. I mean, crazy shit. Like the drummer from the Foo Fighters would come in and ask me if he could play the drum kit, and you know, just nutty shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Rainbow's interesting too because it's an institution, obviously. It's a legendary place, but it's right in the, like you said, it's right in the middle of everything.
Totally.
And that part of Hollywood's always been awesome and fun. And, you know, you could die at any time, depending, but you can have the time of your life at any time, depending too.
It's totally like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I love all that shit, so I've never had, you know, but some people freak out on it because there's just, it is, let's be real about it. It's rock and roll. So that's really what's going on there. Unless you're clueless to rock and roll, then you shouldn't be going there.
No, totally. And I mean, you know, like you said, the family that runs it, they've been awesome. And they always have a great staff and they run their shit properly. They're fair. And it's a good operation. You could tell. And a lot of the waiters and service bartenders, the chefs have been there for a very long time. So that's always a good sign of an establishment. Yeah. And then again, you're in the middle of Los Angeles, which is La La Land, right? So you're going to run into all kinds of craziness, celebrities and weirdos and hipsters and normal people. Like we talked about, some people, like you said, when NAMM's in town, that's the main party hub after NAMM, even though it's all the way in Anaheim half the time. You know, you drive all the way to, you know, West Hollywood and that part of Hollywood, and you know, you party at the Rainbow. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the spot.
Dreams are either made there or broken there,
or destroyed, right? And the food's underrated there too, man. That pizza and the burgers, phenomenal, man. So they got a great operation there. You know, at the end of the day, it's just a really fun, positive place to be.
Yeah, no, it's great. I have nothing but great memories and great things to say about that place. That's a whole nother episode, man. We could talk.
We'll have to have you back on, man. We're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon because I know you got shit to do. We're going past 3 hours now. But, dude, I one of the funniest quotes ever I wanted to remind you of is when Ruin played down in Long Beach at that Blacklight District Lounge, which now is what's the name of the place now? The
Supply and Demand.
Yeah, Supply and Demand. What a great venue that is, man. It's so fun to go there, and the staff rules, and you know, the people that bought that place are awesome, and it's so much better than the Blacklight District Lounge was. And I remember, you know, you and the wife came to the Ruin show, and I forget who we were opening for. It was one of our buddies from out of town, Petrification. That was the band from Portland. Yeah. And, you know, after our set, you were there with the wife, and we were drinking beers, and you're all, Mikey, you know what? Man, I couldn't understand a fucking thing that was going on, but that was heavy as shit, man. You were talking about the Ruin set. We just couldn't stop laughing. I told the guys that, and I was fucking rolling. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Katon kind of liked us. That's all that matters.
It was way heavy, but that place was run crazy, dude.
Totally.
Seriously?
I mean, the sound sucks there, but the Ruin sound is supposed to be horrible, so we do that on purpose. So
it was way heavy.
Part of that was how bad the sound was at that venue, but part of it is how bad Ruin is on purpose.
it was very, very heavy. But those, dude, that I'm glad they sold it because it was like actually kind of scary.
Dude, that guy, the original owner was on that Bar Rescue with that John Taffer guy. They had it, dude. It was that guy. I mean, John Taffer, he is who he is, right? That's what he does. He yells at people and pushes them around and tries. But that owner, man, was he something else, dude? Like, holy crap! But it showed in like the security guards, the bartenders, the door people that he had working there. It was just, we hated fucking playing there, and I didn't want to do that show, but our friends were like, "Oh, come on, we need a Long Beach show, and Ruin's more Orange County based. We need some help,
Yeah.
All right. So we fucking begrudgingly took that fucking show, and actually that, you came and a bunch of other friends came down from Long Beach, so that's why it was cool. I got to see you, got to hang out with some other buddies I hadn't seen for a while, and it ended up being a great night at the end of the day, especially getting a little buzz with Katon, is always good. One of my favorite things. So
you guys did well, especially under the circumstances, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Yeah. Well, let's, dude, this is like one of the best interviews I've ever done. I've been a part of. I really appreciate it, man. We'll have to, like you said, we're going to have to do some more because, there's so much more to discuss, but especially just the rainbow alone.
Yeah.
Some of your experience. I need to hear more about this old dirty bastard thing too, but
that was great, man.
That's fascinating. But hey, you got anything to plug, man? I mean, let's, plug so tell everybody about the websites, where to get Hirax stuff, talk about this album, when it's going to be out, all that good stuff, man. Plug away.
Right away. It won't take me too long. I'm pretty quick with this shit. Been doing it a while. So basically, if people want to track us down and find us on the internet, the best way to do that is either Hirax Big Cartel. I mean, you can even just punch it into a search engine, but Hirax Big Cartel, that's our main site. The other main site would be Hirax Bandcamp. So Bandcamp, Hirax, and you'll find us there. All the merchandise is on there, and more is coming, obviously, with the new album coming out, which is called Hate. No, I went back to the second album. Anyways, the new album is called Faster Than Death, and that's coming out pretty soon. The first thing we're going to have is an EP, which is 4 songs off of Faster Than Death. That'll be released August 1st in Europe. I'm sure copies will make their way across the seas to get to us, but that's going to be a limited pressing of 500 copies on red and yellow vinyl, 250 of each, and good luck to everybody who's going to try to track that down. I hope everybody gets those. And then the new album, Faster Than Death, the full length with the final mix should be out a couple of months after that. So we'll keep you posted, and then we tour Europe in August, starting August 1st. There it is. That's the new EP. Then like I said, we'll be in Europe starting August 1st. Dortmund, Germany, Hirax, and Exodus will start off there, and then we're going to work our way across Europe, do a bunch of festivals and some other club dates with a band called Exhumer from Germany.
Nice.
That should be killer. We're doing a couple of other dates with Exodus and also a band. Well, people should know this one, Flotsam and Jetsam. So going to be a pretty busy August, and then after that, October, we'll be on the road doing some dates with Sodom from Germany. We'll be doing San Francisco at the Oakland Metro House, Oakland Opera Metro House. I think that's
Oakland. I always call it the Metro. Oakland Metro.
The Metro. And then there's a place called the Monarch in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Monarch. We'll be playing there with Sodom again. So, and there's more dates that are going to be announced. There's some special stuff coming up for next year as well, because once this new album comes out, we'll be touring all the way into at least 2025. Maybe 2026 before the next record, but pretty busy cycle once this new album comes out. And I just want to thank you for having me, and also thanks to the fans that'll be tuning in and checking this out. Much respect. We'll see you on the road. Stay heavy.
Thanks again, Katon. You rule, man. Love you, brother. And this has been an honor. And your continued success, I'm sure it's going to be fucking ever flowing and eternal. And it's going to be badass. I can't wait to hear the new album. And fuck yeah, man. Thanks a lot for the chat. And we'll hook up more soon. And I'm sure I'll fucking have some beers either pretty soon, brother.
Mike, thank you so much. And much respect and love to you, brother. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
We'll get the links up, everybody, pretty soon. So you'll be watching this, and we'll get it up, and we'll start spreading it around. Later.
Metal on, brother. We'll see you.
Fuck yeah.
pit, hell pit, you a simple reaper. He comes to claim your soul. Fire burning brightly, torches gaslight, skeleton to me.